quickly before this video starts, I do want to say that this video was heavily inspired by another art channel here on YouTube called Popcraft Studios. So, if you haven't already, I do recommend y'all to check him out. He already has a lot of subscribers, but one more won't hurt. Anyway, with all that being said, how's it going everyone? T Rav here, and in this video I've combined 4 Marvel characters with 4 DC characters. If you want to see the final results, then watch the video to the very end. And if you want to see more of this type of content, then I do recommend y'all to hit that like button and subscribe to see more. Anyway, with all that being said, here's the video. Born in Central City, the Allen family went on an expedition to find the hidden city of Kunlun, which only appears every 10 years, and accompanied with them was their business partner, Eobard Meacham. While scaling the mountains, young Danny slipped, taking his father and mother with him, only hanging on by their tie ropes. Eobard saw this as an opportunity to steal Wendell's wife from him, so he let him fall to his death, only saving Danny and his mother, Heather. Heather rejected Eobard's advantages, and she took Danny with her and ran off in a different direction. While running, they came across a pack of hungry wolves, and with nothing else to do, Heather decided to sacrifice herself to save Danny. Archers from Kunlun tried to save her, but they were ultimately too late. They took pity on the 9-year-old Danny Allen and welcomed him in their city. There, he not only learned martial arts, but science as well, becoming one of the smartest residents there. At age 19, Danny was given the opportunity to gain the powers of the Lightning Fist. The only way to do this is by fighting and slaying the Speed Force Dragon. The battle was fierce, and Danny almost lost his life. But he had an epiphany. He figured if he could cancel out the dragon's momentum, then the dragon's speed will stop working. After killing the dragon, the Speed Force chose him to be its new avatar, and thus branded him with a lightning bolt on his chest with dragon wings. The Speed Force not only grants him the ability to run at super speed by channeling his ki throughout his whole body, but also if he channels his ki directly in his fist, then they become as hard as iron. Danny decides to leave Kunlun and move back to Central City on a quest for revenge. But he couldn't find Eobard anywhere. Well, it turns out that Eobard was not the man he claimed to be. In fact, he is actually from the distant future and is the avatar of the negative Speed Force. But that'll be a story for another time. Now living in Central City, Danny found work as a forensic chemist for CCPD, and was the founding member of the Defending League. Even though he has super speed, he still manages to be late for most events in his life. Our next story starts on a dying planet known as Krypton. Ravaged by war and on the brink of total annihilation, the parents of the young Luke L. decide the best thing to do for their newborn was send him to a new planet not too different from theirs. They place him in a rocket and blast him off, hoping that his new parents will raise him well. His rocket crash landed in a small farm in Smallville, Kansas, where the couple Jonathan and Martha Cage found him. They decided to adopt him and name him Clark. And seeing that Clark looks human, they decide to keep his alien heritage a secret. After all, this world has a stigma against the meta-mutant population. People born with or were given powers in some points in their life. And so far, Clark seemed normal. That was until his powers started to manifest. It's not uncommon for meta-mutants to gain powers in their adolescence, and as a Kryptonian, Clark's genes start to mutate while being exposed to Earth's yellow sun. He developed super strength, flight, and bulletproof skin. It was at this point his parents had to tell him the truth. Reasonably upset that his parents kept this a secret from him for his whole life, he ran away from home and decided to join a gang. With his powers, he committed several petty crimes, but then he realized he was not just hurting himself, but his family as well, and he figured he could help a lot more people with these powers instead. He got out of the gang and moved back home to tell his parents what he's going to do now. John hated the idea of Clark using his powers, but Martha? She loved the thought of her son being a hero. She made Clark a costume fashioned out of his old blanket from his rocket, and he adopted the name Power Man. He would save a lot of people in Smallville, even going out of his way to save cats from trees. It seems like people really liked him, even if he was a metamutant. John would later change his mind about his son's powers, but things started to take a turn for the worse. John's health was declining, and Clark, he was powerless to save him, and then John would eventually die from a heart attack. As an adult, Clark would move to Harlem and get a job as a journalist for the Planet Bugle. Things seemed to be going up for him at first, but an old gang member caught wind of Power Man's exploits. Willis Luther, now the leader of the gang, and a man who never liked metamutants to begin with, wanted to see Clark's downfall. He schemed a way to make it look like Power Man would kill someone, and it worked. Even though Power Man didn't kill anyone, he would still have to prove his innocence and would have to out himself as Power Man. It could have been from a bribe or from prejudice, but Clark was found guilty of the crime he didn't commit and was sentenced to a metamutant prison. But this wasn't enough for Luther. He wanted to find out what could stop Power Man once and for all. Luther hired a research scientist to find out what makes this alien tick. Turns out that remnants of Clark's home planet, now radiated, would weaken him and cancel out his impenetrable skin. Years later, the government caught on to Luther's plan and released Clark from prison. He would occasionally team up with Lightning Fist and call themselves the Super Friends for Hire. He would also join the Defending League to stop the ninja invasion from the League of the Hand. Diana Jones was born on the Amazonian island of Themyscira. There she trained to be a skilled warrior alongside her friend and adopted sister, Artemis Walker. Everything was peaceful until a man watched short on the beach. His name was Steve Kilgrave. He was from New York, but his plane crashed in the middle of the ocean. At first, the Amazons didn't want a man on the island, and voted for him to succumb to his wounds and injuries and die on the beach. But Diana stepped in. Even though he's not one of them, he deserved to live. So, she helped take care of Kilgrave until he's healed up. Then, he has to leave Themyscira and never return. During this time, Diana and Kilgrave fell in love, and she chose to leave with him back to New York, a city filled with heroes and villains. She decided to join the fight for good using her Amazonian strength and warrior skills. She became the hero known as Wonder Jewel. But something kept eating away at her in the back of her mind. For an unknown reason, she was on a mission to kill the vigilante in Goth's kitchen, the Devil Bat, accidentally killing a bystander in the process, and that is where she snapped back to normal. She has been having strange blackouts ever since she met Kilgrave. Turns out, their whole relationship was a lie, fabricated by Kilgrave using his metamutant ability to brainwash people. Kilgrave never loved her. He only used her for her strength and forced her to move to New York and help him with a crime spree. Diana would eventually leave Kilgrave. She wanted to kill him, but she was scared that he would use his powers on her again, so she would instead avoid him. She started a new life as a private investigator and would drop the Wonder Jewel alias. She would also start drinking heavily to cope with the trauma, but she couldn't let go of her hatred towards Kilgrave. She would eventually hear that other women were involved in random murders and petty crimes where they would have no business being in. Kilgrave has returned. Diana knew there was only one way out of this nightmare. She would have to kill Kilgrave once and for all. After finding him, he would try to use his powers to manipulate her into ending her own life. But it had no effect. Turns out, Diana developed a natural immunity to Kilgrave's mind control. Then she walked up to him and snapped his neck, ripping his head clean off. Kilgrave is now dead, but Diana still feels guilty for everything she did while being under his control. Suddenly, the city was being invaded by red ninjas who called themselves the League of the Hand. He is righteousness. He is the night. He is Devil Bat. Born in a wealthy family in Goth's kitchen, Bruce Murdoch was the son of the tech tycoon and boxer Thomas Murdoch. The Murdochs had it all: fame, money, and power. But no one knew of Thomas's dark history. As a boxer, his manager was Carmine Sweeney, an infamous mob boss. One night, Carmine told Thomas to throw a fight, but in order to keep his son's respect, he refused. A few weeks later, after exiting the re-airing of Rocky in the cinema, the Murdochs were chased down the street by a hitman hired by Carmine. The hitman manages to gun down Thomas, but was too distracted and didn't see the truck carrying vats of toxic waste. He was going to shoot Bruce, but was then hit by the truck, spilling the toxic waste into Bruce's eyes, and with the fumes, Bruce went into a coma. He woke up in the hospital blind and with the news that his father was dead. He was put up for adoption in a Catholic orphanage, where he was later adopted by a friend of the family, Stick Pennyworth. Turns out, not only Stick was blind as well, but he is also a skilled martial artist who has been hunting down the members of the League of the Hand. He will train Bruce not only in martial arts, but also strengthening his remaining senses. Not only he can see by using echolocation, but he can also feel print on paper with his fingers, and even feel the colors. But also he can hear if someone is lying to him as well, by listening to their heartbeats. He will take up crime fighting by using tech from Murdoch Industries, and would make a suit using the colors from his father's old boxing uniform. Now all he needed was a name, something that would strike fear in the hearts of his enemies. He took inspiration from what scared him the most as a kid: bats and the devil. He would eventually change his suit to a mostly red theme, not only because yellow is not an intimidating color, but also to hide his identity better, because using Murdoch tech while dressed like Thomas Murdoch would be a big giveaway. After a brief run-in with Diana Jones, Bruce had a hard time trusting other heroes, so after forming the Defending League to take down the League of the Hand, he would also make a contingency plan in case of himself or any other members of the Defending League would ever go rogue. Alright, and here's the final results, and I really do like how all these turned out. I love Lightning Fist's fists, dang, that's just hard to say. Power Man, even though he's very simplistic, I really do like how he looks. And with the name Power Man, I am very bad at coming up with names. As you can tell, Lightning Fist, Wonder Jewel, Bat Devil, I'm just combining their names, but with Power Man, I just basically stole Luke Cage's superhero name. I feel like it's a good Superman substitute name to begin with, because DC Comics also have Power Girl, so it kind of works. Wonder Jewel, which is very hard to say with a southern accent, I really do like how I made the hair with her natural hair color like growing out, and the dyed part kind of fading out into the natural hair color. I really do like that. Bat Devil, I think it's probably my favorite. Right next to Wonder Jewel. I really do like Wonder Jewel, which I'm just going to call her Diana Jones from now on. But yeah, anyway, I really do like Bat Devil as well, and I give him 2 costumes. And I think I like the yellow one more? I don't know, I also really do like the red one. So anyway, let me know what your favorite is in the comment section down below. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out the channel a lot, and yeah, I guess I'll talk to you all in the next video. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to another Marvel DC Fusion mashup, whatever you want to call it, video. let's see, how long has it been since when I last uploaded? Oh, 2 years? Ooh. Okay, well anyway, sorry it took so long to make this video. Basically what happened was, I made the art 2 years ago, and I kinda just sat on it for the longest time. I was focusing mainly on my main channel, and then life just gets in the way, and the next thing you know, 2 years passed, and we're all just 2 years older. So, yeah, I honestly did not mean to wait this long to upload this video. But anyway, good things to come to those who wait, right? Anyway, I guess I'm rambling on a bit too much, so, roll the video. When a primitive human encounters a technologically advanced being, more times than not, they will assume that they are a god. And that is what happened around 10,000 BCE, when a colorful light crashed down to Earth, near a camp of Neanderthals. This light left behind an army of human-looking creatures with large bird wings jutting out their backs, clad in shining armor and weapons made of what they called Uranth metal, which is forged from a dying star. Suddenly, another being crashed down, leaving behind an army of frost giants, and with a loud war cry, these two factions began to fight. These early humans were terrified and fled the scenes, but others, they stayed and watched in amazement. This war was a bloodbath, and the mysterious birdmen were victorious. And the remaining frost giants, they retreated in the same beam of light that brought them here. The Neanderthals who stayed and watched will pass the story down through generations. And like a game of telephone, this story will change and evolve over time. Scholars will argue that this was the origin of many ancient gods throughout history, most notably the origins of both Norse and ancient Egyptian gods. At least that's what Dr. Carter Blake thinks. He found some of this Uranth metal while on an archaeological dig in Egypt, and now he's on his way to Sweden where he heard rumors about more of this rare metal being found, including a mysterious mace. After the mace was discovered, people all over the city tried to lift it, but no one was successful. Dr. Carter Blake makes it to the dig site where he sees these government agents telling everyone to leave the premises. These agents were in SHERIS, or the Strategic Homeland Advanced Research Uniting Superhuman, and they contacted Dr. Carter Blake to analyze the artifact. He indeed identifies it as Uranth metal, but has no clue why it's so heavy. He sees an inscription on it written in what he can only describe as an alien writing. A scientist walks up behind Carter and translates the inscription. Whoever wields this mace, if they be worthy, shall possess the powers of Thunderhawk. Carter looks back in confusion, then the scientist introduces herself. Her name is Kendra Foster, and SHERIS deals with a lot of alien artifacts, which is why she was able to translate the writing and identify it as Dennisgarian. Carter feels like he met Kendra before, but can't figure out when or where. The next morning, Carter and Kendra start talking, and he has a strange deja vu feeling that he just can't describe. He knows that Kendra knows more than what she's letting on. Maybe it's because she works at a top secret government team, but she knew an awful lot about this mace. He went back to the dig site and tried to lift the mace, but he was interrupted by Kendra telling him not to bother with it. No one can lift it, and it also acts like a lightning rod, so unless he wants to get zapped, you should stay away from it. Carter stepped back and confronted Kendra about how she knows all this stuff, in which she replies back saying it's confidential, and Carter should return home where he's safe, but he refuses and heads back to the lab. As an archaeologist, it is his job to study artifacts, but for some reason, Kendra is not allowing him to study this mace. So, he waits until the dead of night where everyone is asleep and sneaks back to the dig site. The mace is still there, and Carter presses hands on the handle, first getting zapped by electricity, but he persisted anyway, and with all of his might, he tries to lift the mace. It was tough at first, but he kept pulling, and right when it was a millimeter off the ground, a bolt of lightning struck Carter. Everything was in slow motion for Carter as he saw his life flash before his eyes. Then another life flashed before his eyes again, and another, and another. All of these past lives were of him, and he sees another figure in them as well. He recognized her as Kendra Foster, and for some reason, both him and her were being killed by this mysterious person whom he can't recall. This blinding bright flash wakes everyone up, including Kendra, and they rush to the site where they see Carter, now muscular, with large red wings jutting out of his back, wearing an Uranth helmet. The mace in Carter's hand now feels light as a feather. As he's flipping the mace around, everyone shows up to the site where he sees Kendra, who asks if she can talk to him in private. When SHERIS found the mace, she was the first one who picked it up. She too had visions of her past lives, visions of her and Carter as Stenagarians, and they were madly in love with each other and were about to get married, until Carter's brother, a jealous priest who was known for being a trickster, cursed them and stabbed them both. The curse gave them the ability to reincarnate, but also forget each other until they wield the mace granted to Carter by his father. The mace is imbued with memories of every versions of Carter and Kendra, and when wielded they regain their memories. But this comes at a cost. Now that they remember, the curse will continue, and seeing the person she loved through space and time being killed by this trickster priest, Kendra believed the only way to stop the curse was to make sure that Carter would never pick up the mace, but she couldn't stop Faith from stepping in. Suddenly, a beam of light crashed down in the city, leaving behind an army of frost giants, and a man clad in green robes, with an Uran scepter and a helmet with large horns, and a pair of hawk wings growing out of his back. He commands the giants to attack. Boss Inspector is a broken man. He suffers from an extreme case of dissociative identity disorder, or DID, where he has two other personalities that takes over. Arnold Grant, a wealthy millionaire playboy, and Carmine Lockley, a cab driver who tends to know a lot of people in the criminal underbelly of Goth's kitchen. Boston started showing signs of DID when he was young, first believing that he befriended a wealthy kid named Arnold Grant, which later had been revealed to be an alter of his. And because of this, his parents sent him to Ravencroft Asylum, a mental hospital for the criminally insane. Boston was so confused as why he was sent to this hellhole in the first place, but at least his brother would periodically visit him, which kept him sane, for the most part. Boston was practically raised in this place, but he did manage to escape and join the US Marines alongside his brother. After years of serving his country, the Marines found out that he lied on his papers, and because of his history of mental illness, Boston was seen unfit to serve, and therefore he leaves the Marines and he would then join the circus. Boston, who was a skilled acrobatic, would perform death-defying stunts, but death does come for us all. And on one fateful night in Egypt, a gunshot can be heard in the circus tent, and a bleeding Boston Inspector falls off a trapeze to his demise. With people screaming and fleeing the scenes, no one was able to find this gunman and bring him to justice. As Boston was bleeding out, he would see a bright light and hear the voice of his brother. But the voice was him as a kid. Long ago, when they were young, the twin brothers, Boston and Cleveland Spectre, were inseparable. They would play games where they were explorers, superheroes, and a bunch of other stuff that young minds can imagine. But on one rainy day, when they were playing a game, they stumbled across a cave and acted out a scene from the movie they just watched the day before. But tragedy struck where Cleveland ended up getting trapped in the cave and ultimately drowned. Boston's parents blame him for the death of his brother. And after seeing him talking to what they assumed to be an imaginary friend of his, Arnold Grant, they sent him away to a mental hospital. Boston must have blocked this from his memories and created another alter that took the form of his brother so as not to feel guilty for what he has done. But this is not where his story ends. The Egyptian god of the moon Khonshu takes pity on Boston and allows him to become a wandering spirit to find the person who killed him and exact vengeance on them. But there's only so much he can do as a ghost. Although he can't directly interact with the living, he can possess people. So he found a man to possess, Mark Brand, and would later become the crime-fighting vigilante known as Blood Moon. Or did he really? Was all of this in his mind to begin with? Mark, Boston, Arnold, Carmine, Cleveland, and Khonshu? Does Mark or Boston really have the powers to possess people? Or did Mark or Boston really have a brother to begin with? Is Khonshu real? Is Mark really in Goth's kitchen? Or is he inside Ravencroft Asylum still, acting all this out inside of his mind? Is he a superhero ghost detective? Or is he just another crazy person? Is this really his reality? Is this universe with gods and monsters, superheroes and supervillains even real? Or is this universe just one big illusion crafted by the mind of an unwell individual? Who really is Blood Moon? Tatsu Nachios and her father were kidnapped by the Yakuza and then was rescued by the Devil Bat of Goth's kitchen. After that experience, she grew cold and distant. She learned martial arts and joined the League of the Hand, an ancient group of ninjas who want to awake an immortal dragon who is asleep under New York. Tatsu, now a skilled assassin who goes by the codename Sai, was hired by Wilson Cobblepot, better known as the Emperor of Crime, or if you want to get your skull caved in, Emperor Penguin, to hunt down and kill Devil Bat. She accepted the offer, not knowing she was about to assassinate her lover, Bruce Murdoch. Once when she found out who Bat Devil was, she called off the hit, but you never disobey Wilson Cobblepot. Wilson hired another hitman, Lester Slade, aka Deadeye the Terminator. Deadeye tracked Sai and they got into a brawl. Devil Bat tried to help, but Deadeye grabs a hold of Tetsu's Sai and impales her with it. Devil Bat, now enraged, beats Deadeye to an inch of his life and pushes him off the roof. And if it wasn't for Deadeye surviving the fall, Devil Bat nearly broke his #1 rule. no killing. Bruce was in mourning, but something strange happened. The Sai spoke in Tetsu's voice. Her Sai was an ancient mystical weapon forged from the fiery breath of the immortal dragons. And whoever is slain by these Sais, their soul will be trapped in them. This gives Bruce an idea. He might actually be able to save Tetsu's life by removing her soul from the Sai and resurrecting her. Wilson Schwab was your mild-mannered mercenary. He would even say he was an upstanding citizen. After all, he's Canadian. He spent most of his time in a bar owned by his best friend, / punching bag, Weasel, where he would accept jobs from the patrons there. The jobs mostly consist of scaring off stalkers, but he would also get some big-ticket jobs as well, which require him to get his hands dirty. While watching TV in his dingy apartment, a spaceship crash-landed and outstepped an alien who called himself Griff Cooper Fobney Life L, who was attacked by a radioactive spider, and succumbing to the radioactive venom, he died on the spot. A confused Wilson called the Canadian government, who would later call Amanda Fury to handle the situation. While waiting for somebody to show up, Wilson was unknowingly being exposed to some cosmic radiation from the alien ship. Then Amanda showed up and her agent started investigating the scene and carried the body away for further experimentation. A few days passed and Wilson became very sick. His mind was hazy and he was coughing up a lot of blood. The doctors told him that his body absorbed too much cosmic rays, and instead of gaining superpowers, which is very common in this universe, Wilson instead gained super cancer. Because his apartment is still a wreck, he moved into Weasel's bar, and around closing time, a man overheard their conversation and asked Wilson to see him in the booth. He explained that he works for Amanda Fury, and he can help cure his cancer, but he has to do things in return. Amanda would usually recruit criminals to join her top-secret Black Ops team in exchange for reduced jail time. She also has a research facility that specializes in creating super soldiers, inspired by the hero from the future, Captain Gold. She accomplishes this by using metamutant DNA, and because Wilson had experience in these special forces, and is a well-known mercenary, he'll be perfect for Amanda's Task X-Force program, or as the criminals she recruits lovingly refer to it as, the Suicide Squad. With nothing else left to lose, Wilson accepted the offer, as long as his supersuit isn't animated. But green might be okay. He arrived at the top-secret government facility where he would be given a painful dosage of DNA from an old-timey cowboy metamutant named Logan Hex. This strand of DNA should in theory give Wilson an accelerated healing factor to not only heal his cancer, but also heal any injuries he'll gain on the field. But there's only one way to test this, and that is to torture Wilson, and after a long painful session, nothing happened. So the next day, they gave him a higher dosage, and again, nothing happened. This process would continue day in and day out, even bringing Wilson to the brink of death, which gave the scientist who was experimenting and torturing Wilson an idea. If Wilson were to die, maybe that would trigger the Metamutant gene and heal him. So Arcjax placed Wilson in a vacuum chamber to deprive him of oxygen, but before he put him there, Wilson started to taunt Arcjax, saying his name is stupid and it sounds like a combination of a sock brand and dish soap, and would much prefer to use his real name, Francis, which Arcjax hates. Arcjax replied back to Wilson saying, "Maybe we should sew your mouth shut," which Wilson replied back with, "I don't think people at home will like that." But right before he was about to finish, Francis turned the machine on, suffocating Wilson, killing him slowly and painfully. He would thrash around a bit, and then stop. Wilson is now dead. But right before he passed, he witnessed the most beautiful woman he would ever see. She was covered head to toe in a black shroud, with a skeletal face. She would ask him, "Are you scared of me?" Wilson, unable to speak, tried to utter the word no. But before he knew it, he woke up. He was dead for about a week, and now his healing factor kicked in, curing him of his cancer, but also creating new cancer cells just as fast as they were healed, covering his body head to toe in tumors and scars. Wilson is furious. But this is only just the beginning, because the next day, he would have to die again to strengthen the healing factor. The only reason he kept going with this experiment is because he wanted to stay dead and be with the love of his life, or afterlife, death. But every encounter they had started to become shorter and shorter, to the point where they could never meet again. In his anger, Wilson, now with a shattered mind, which should be expected for someone who was being tortured and killed every day, started to fight back. He steals a scalpel and kills some of the scientists and starts looking for Francis. He finds him over a deceased fire metamutant, calling him a failed experiment. And then Wilson charges after him, but when stabbing Francis with the scalpel, Francis just chuckled, saying, "Was that supposed to hurt?" Francis was also a test subject here, and he was given enhanced strength, stamina, and all of his nerves were surgically removed, making him impervious to pain. He smacked Wilson aside, and then they started to brawl. Wilson was being battered, but he was also instantly healing at the same time, and Arjax was lapping off Wilson's attacks. Arjax threw Wilson to some oxygen tanks, and with some quick thinking, Wilson pierced the tanks, causing them to spew out pure oxygen, and with the dead Metamutant's body still on fire, he hurls a tank at him, causing the room to erupt in a big fireball. Francis fled the scenes, dropping his keycard by accident, but a bloody Wilson hobbling to the exit finds a keycard, in which he holds on to. With alarms blaring and people running, Wilson finds a vault and uses Francis's card on it, opening it, expecting there to be some weapons, but instead he finds a suit that the alien was wearing. A green suit with large antennas on the mask. Either wear this or run into the Canadian wilderness naked, which Wilson had considered, but this is a superhero origin story after all, and a superhero needs a super suit. So he puts it on and immediately teleports back to his apartment, where he sees a small robotic bug. He then learns he can release these bugs out of the antennas, and teleport anywhere he wants. Wilson, inspired by the fact that a lot of Metamutants were dropping like flies at the facility, started calling himself Deadbug, and became a villain. But he would eventually become a superhero after meeting Power Man for the first time. And there we have it, Marvel DC Fusions Episode 2, Electric Boogaloo. If y'all enjoyed this video so much, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Do all the fancy YouTuber stuff. And yeah, hope y'all enjoyed this video. And I guess I'll see y'all in another 2 years. Hopefully the next video won't take that long, but you never know, right? How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to the third installment of Marvel DC superhero mashups, or shall I say, villains mashup? Because that's what I'm doing today, folks. I'm going to be taking villains from both Marvel and DC, combining them together, and make a new-ish character. So, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Corruption in Goth's Kitchen. Wilson Cobblepot is a wealthy philanthropist and art tycoon, but he is hiding a dark secret in the city of Goth's Kitchen. He owns and runs an art museum in the heart of Goth's Kitchen called the Iceberg Arts. There he will host parties where he will invite the wealthiest people to buy and sell art to, and to hobnob with his fellow socialites. But art snobs aren't the only people he welcomes at his museum. Little do citizens know, but Wilson is actually a notorious crime lord who goes by the Emperor of Crime, or Emperor Penguin if you have a death wish. Growing up, Wilson's family was poor, not to mention he was born with an extremely long and pointy nose, which resembles a penguin's bill, which made him a target for bullies. Even his own dad would mock his looks. His father was abusive. He would mock his appearance, and he would, on many occasions, hit him, telling him that respect is earned, and if you want to stop, then you have to make it stop. One night his father went too far, and he paid the price. Wilson finally put an end to his father's abuse, and it was because of this upbringing shaped him into the man he is now, a man that will be respected, will not take no for an answer, and will become the wealthiest man in God's Kitchen. His main way to earn respect is through fear, but he might have found a better way to be respected. Wilson is running for mayor in God's Kitchen, unless a certain demon/bat-themed vigilante has anything to say about it. Lonnie Dent had a rough childhood. He was the only African American with albinism on his block. Not to mention he had an abusive father who was embarrassed by his son's appearance. This upbringing gave Lonnie intense mental health issues, but throughout all the odds, he managed to make a good life for himself. He befriended Bruce Murdoch at law school before Bruce gave up on being a lawyer to instead open Murdoch Industries to fund his crusade against crime. He became a lawyer at the age of 26 and never lost a case. Must have been from his lucky coin. But something felt off for Lonnie. Lonnie would, on many occasions, have blackouts where he could never remember what he ended up doing some nights. Turns out his mental health was worse than he thought. He had a split personality that was a hitman for Wilson Cobblepot, and he never knew. Of course, the Emperor of Crime knew, and he would use this to his advantage, oftentimes hiring Lonnie to win court cases for his henchmen. Lonnie was such an impressive killer that he got the nickname Tombstone. Lonnie, still not knowing about his other half, decided to run for mayor against Wilson Cobblepot. If only he knew the mistake he was about to make. Wilson's polls started to dip, and of course, he wasn't very happy about this. He wanted to send a message to his top hitman / lawyer, so he hired another one of his many assassins to scare Lonnie. The assassin breaks into Lonnie's house, drugs him, and kidnaps him. Lonnie wakes up in a chemical plant and doused in chemicals, and is lit on fire. Hearing the words, "You should never cross the Emperor," the fire was so intense the pain was unimaginable, but the pain did stop, as his body was in shock and his nerves began to die. The fire only spread on the left side of his body. He hears footsteps coming from the shadows. It was Wilson, and with a chuckle he said, "Looks like Tombstone is a two-faced crooked lawyer. Maybe we should call you Tombface from now on." He ordered his men to put him out, and warned Lonnie if he doesn't drop out the race, he will burn his other side as well. Lonnie did just that. He dropped out the race and never ratted out his attackers. This experience left him scarred more ways than one. The good side of Lonnie kept in hiding as his darker side took over. Now he is one of Goth's Kitchen's many crime lords, and he wants revenge for what Wilson had done to him. Edward Russo was born in an Italian-American family. He was extremely gifted, the top student of his class, but his father suspected him of cheating. He would beat Edward into telling him the truth, which he had. He never cheated, but his father doesn't believe him. The consistent beating left Edward the ability to never tell a lie. He found escape through a book of riddles he loved as a kid. The book even inspired him to create his own puzzles. He would leave his family and join Wilson Cobblepot's crime family. There he felt understood, he felt like he belonged, and he became Wilson's top hitman. It used to have been Lonnie Dent, but let's just say politics ruined yet another friendship. There was a shootout in the park between two rival gangs, and Chris Castle's family got caught in the crossfires. It was Edward's job to clean up the gang's mess by finding and killing the rest of the Castles and their loved ones. This was a driving point for Chris to become the Punishmaker, a vigilante who wants peace no matter how many people he has to punish to get it. The Punishmaker tracked Edward down and started to open fire. He wanted to send a message to Wilson, so he kept Edward alive and threw him into a pane of glass, covering Edward's face with scars. Edward woke up in a back alley hospital with bandages covering his face. He left Wilson's family and became Goth's Kitchen's notorious serial killer, the Puzzle Master. He would leave riddles at the scene of the crime for any would-be heroes to find. His favorite hero to butt heads with was the Bat Devil of Goth's Kitchen, the world's greatest detective, and his intellectual rival. He would set up complex death traps, and in order to escape, you had to solve a series of puzzles, each one being harder than the last. And if you fail, you die. Lester Slade grew up in a foster home. As a kid, he would join a Pee Wee baseball team, where he would excel. He was the best pitcher the team had ever had. He even had dreams of being in the major leagues, but eventually he grew bored with the sport. It was no longer a challenge for him. He asked the coach to pull him from the game, but the coach insisted that he plays. So Lester threw the ball, hitting the young batter in the head, killing him. This wasn't his first murder. The reason why he was put in foster care because he killed and faked his father's suicide. At age 16, Lester joined the United States Army by faking his age. He was given an experimental drug to sign off of the same serum given to Captain Gold, the super soldier from the future, to turn Lester into a super soldier as well. Something went wrong though, and Lester went into a coma. He woke up with newfound strength, stamina, and agility. This, mixed with his abilities to never miss a shot, made Lester into the perfect soldier. But that didn't make him invincible. He lost an eye while deployed, and that infuriated him. He was firing rounds on anybody he sees, doesn't matter if it was his teammates or civilians. Lester was eventually dishonorably discharged from the military, and would later be hired by Wilson Cobblepot, the Emperor of Crime, and the Mayor of Goth's Kitchen. Lester would cross paths with many heroes, even taking some of their lives, most noticeably Tatsunachio's, better known as Psy. He developed a rivalry with Devil Bat and his young ward, Nightweb. He tried on many occasions to persuade Peter Grayson to join him. He even threatened the lives of his friends, but he never succeeded. He would sometimes cross paths with Deadbug, an annoying mercenary who calls Deadeye a bootleg version of himself. But Lesser calls Wade out on this, saying that he's older than him, so he's the ripoff. Alright, and there you have it, guys. It was so much fun doing the art for this episode, and compared to the last video where I sat on that art for 2 years, and looking at my art now, I can see like a massive improvement. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and let me know if y'all have any ideas for characters I should mash up, or ideas for videos in general. I'm open to suggestions. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this episode. Hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTuber stuff. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to turning Minecraft mobs into superheroes and villains. So this idea was actually spawned off from my gaming channel where I play a lot of Minecraft, which you guys should totally check out, by the way. Links in the description. It's also at the end card. And if you like what you see, subscribe. Anyway, I think I yapped long enough. On to the video. The mining town of Moyangia was a quiet, peaceful city located in Sweden. That was until the cubes invaded. The scientist who went by Notch created a portal to a dimension made up of blocks. He figured he could harness the energy from this dimension to use as a new reliable resource. But the rift was unstable. Cubes were flying out of the portal and spread throughout the city, fusing with people. The portal was eventually closed, but now people were infected by an unknown energy. Nothing bad happened to them, but over generations, the people of Moyangia started to develop powers. Now, up to 60% of Moyangia's populations are superpowered. Some people use these powers for good, while others use them for evil. It is up to the heroes of Moyangia to stop these villains and to make sure the non-powered citizens are safe from harm. Krister Kreppert wanted to live the good life. When he was young, he wanted to be a hero like he saw on TV. But when his powers started to develop, he was extremely disappointed. He gained the power to cause small explosions near himself, and an allergy to cats. He felt like this was a mistake. He felt like the heroes shouldn't cause collateral damage on purpose. This power was power that villains would use. His family was poor and he was hoping he could be a hero and use his fame to support them. But now he had to come up with a new path in life. When he grew up, he worked in the mines, using his explosions to help carve out tunnels, but he felt unsatisfied. Not to mention the pay was lousy. He got fed up with his job and quit. Maybe he could be a hero with these powers. He created a suit, and with his abilities, he could creep up on the bad guys and scare them with his explosions. So he started to call himself Creeper. His first mission, though, was an absolute failure. He was called in to stop a bank robbery, and he thought the robber had powers too. So he used his explosions on him. The robber blew up, traumatizing the hostages. Krister gave up on being a hero after that, but he still needed the money. At this point, he was desperate, so he started to rob banks as well. During one of his heists, he was almost stopped by the hero, the Iron Golem. The Iron Golem punches Creeper into a power pole, knocking it over. The power line sapped Creeper, but it didn't hurt. Instead, he felt stronger. The Iron Golem leaped into a flying punch, and with Creeper's hands splayed out, he unleashed a giant explosion. The Iron Golem survived, but just barely, uttering the words, "Oh man." And with the giant cloud of smoke distracting the Iron Golem, Creeper vanished. After that day, Krister started to carry a taser with him in case he needed a little boost, and thus he became the notorious bank robber, the Creeper. Eduardo Goldman was incredibly strong. He wasn't super strong, he just worked out a lot. Matter of fact, he had no powers at all. He was just a strong man with a heart of gold and the willpower of iron. While walking through the city, he witnessed a hero who just went by the name Steve, protecting people from a villain. He had no powers, yet he managed to take down one of the strongest villains, the Wither, a criminal who had the powers to spread death and decay by throwing his wither smoke skulls. This incredible feat of heroism inspired Eduardo to become a hero as well. He crafted a suit of armor. Although it's a bit clunky, he made it work. The suit gives Eduardo a strength boost, and he makes it where the arms can extend, giving him the ability to punch the bad guys from really far away. He went out on patrol and saw the Piglin gang trying to rob people of their jewelry. He yelled, "Stand back, villagers!" and threw an extendo punch at the leader of the gang, the Brute. The gang ran off in the portal, and the citizens cheered as they were saved. Eduardo noticed some people were still scared, so he gave them flowers to help calm their nerves. They asked him for his name, and he replied, "The Iron Goldman," but his voice was muffled under the helmet, so the citizens thought he said Golem. Thus the name stuck, Eduardo the Iron Golem. Agnel Farlander wanted to follow the footsteps of the scientists who opened the portal that caused the people of Moyangia to develop powers. His research was sound. If he could open a portal to an alternate dimension, he could harness the energy and use it to replace fossil fuels, but the rift was unstable. He discovered a dimension that can only be described as the end of the universe. This was an alien world. It was cold and practically lifeless. That was until he saw a strange, tall figure in the darkness. Agnel caught a glimpse of the figure's glowing purple eyes, and with a loud, guttural screech, the figure teleported to Agnel and started clawing him. Agnel closed the portal, severing the monster's arm, with purple blood covering the floor of the lab. Agnel passed out. He woke up with all of his wounds healed, but the irises of his eyes were glowing the same purple as the monster's. As he stared at himself in the mirror, he started to hear TV static in his head, and he started to grow 10 feet tall. His skin darkened with his veins glowing a rich purple. After that, it was all a blur for him. He woke up again, but this time in his house, which was a wreck with claw marks littering the walls. He turns on the TV and sees cell phone footage of a tall, lanky monster in his lab coat, wreaking havoc in the city. He then realized that whatever that monster was that attacked him mutated him, and the transformation triggers when someone looks into his eyes. He would open the portal again, but this time avoiding eye contact with these monsters. He would explore this end dimension and sees a weird alien tree with fruit growing from it. He had a strange compulsion to eat one of the fruits, so he plucked it and ate it, and notices that the static noise in his head would stop temporarily. He also teleported a few feet away from the tree. He collected a bunch of these fruits, and he returned back to his lab to do some more research. He found out that the particles that these Endermen would give off were actually spores, and he must have breathed in these spores when he was being attacked. Even though he hasn't found a cure yet, these fruits help stave off the transformation, but just barely. In order to not transform, he would have to avoid eye contact for the rest of his life. Otherwise, he would unleash the Enderman. Dennis Lindquist is a loyal friend to Steve. After Steve's brother was killed by the villain Dragoness, he teamed up with Steve to hunt down the villain and bring justice for the ones who lost their lives from her wrath. He went missing while hunting the Dragoness down, and Steve lost yet another friend. Dennis Lindquist III took up his grandfather's mantle and is the new wolf hero and the leader of the pack, a group of other wolf-themed heroes. He gained his powers at a young age. He can basically do anything a wolf can do. He has increased senses like smell and hearing, which he uses to track villains down. He is also super agile, and he has a proportional strength of a wolf, but when enraged, he goes into a primal state. His hair stands up, his eyes glow red, and his strength increases. But he can't control himself in this form. The same goes for the rest of the pack, except some members also have the ability to withstand hot and cold climates as well. Dennis got an alert. Steve thinks he might have found the original wolf. The thing is, they have to travel to the dangerous world of the End to find him. Alright, and there we have it. Minecraft mobs as superheroes and villains. This is a lot of fun to do, and I really like how the art turned out. I think my favorite guy would be the Iron Golem. Let me know what y'all's favorite is in the comments down below. But yeah, I just really like how the Iron Golem look. I don't really draw armored characters because it's very time consuming. But I really like it. I think it looks really cool. And also the pose is very dynamic with the fist trying to like go not at the camera but like kind of near, like the stretchiness of the arm. I feel like it just helps. I also don't do a whole lot of foreshortening because I don't know, I feel like I'm not that great at it. But you know, practice makes perfect. Anyway, again, if you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do by now. You'll watch a lot for YouTube as well, I'm pretty sure. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun fancy YouTuber stuff. And I'll talk to you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to a spooky Halloween special. Ooh. Anyway, so I decided to do something special this Halloween. As you can clearly tell, I don't know why to repeat myself, but I am turning the boys, well, more specifically, 4 members of the 7 into zombies. And just a bit of a warning, this story gets pretty dark near the end, to a point where I'm questioning if I should change it. But y'all will see. Or maybe not, depending if I did change it. Anyway, enough yapping. Let's start drawing. Zombie 7. Well, 4 out of 7. Who knows, if this video gets a lot of likes, I might do a part 2 and finish the rest of the 7. Anyway, roll the clips. It all started back in 1939, when Nazi scientists were experimenting on humans to create the perfect super soldier. They created Compound V, a drug that grants superpowers, but when taken by adults, it made the users extremely ill, ultimately killing them. Then the scientists realized that giving Compound V to infants, the odds of survival increased, but it unknowingly created a ticking time bomb. Many years later, and fought as a multi-million-dollar company who monopolized the superhero industry by creating a bunch of soups, it would make billions off of merchandise alone. The most famous is Homelander, the soup that stands for truth, justice, and the American way. He is also a megalomaniacal maniac degenerate with a childish attitude. He was on his way to a convention to promote a new movie starring the 7, until he noticed blood dripping from his nose and ears. With Homelander's ability, it is nearly impossible for him to get sick. He has to be a perfect specimen. He can't go out in front of the crowd looking like this. So he called off his appearance, forcing the Deep to take his place, and flies off to his apartment in Fog Towers. There, he started to hit a secret supply of milk, hoping it would calm his nerves. But all it did was make him vomit blood. He was getting chills. His skin started to turn blotchy and blue. His eyes were starting to glaze over. He felt the blood coursing through his veins faster and faster, until it suddenly stopped. His brain began to shut down. Everything was getting fuzzy. The room was spinning. Then, Homelander collapsed. A few hours passed, and he started to wake up, and he was really hungry. He hears knocking at the door. It was the Deep, ready to chew Homelander out for leaving him to do the whole Q&A by himself. Homelander shambles to the door, opening it. The Deep sees Homelander and asks if they are supposed to do a zombie special on FOD+. Then Homelander lunges at the Deep, biting a chunk out of his shoulder, and then spitting it out, muttering that Compound V tastes terrible. An intern accidentally dropped the binder in the hall as they witnessed what Homelander did in horror. This grabs his attention as he flies towards them and starts eating them, tearing chunks of flesh and meat, blood covering the halls. As the alarms began to blare, people began to panic. After being attacked by the zombie Homelander, the Deep runs to his apartment. He was packing everything he could. Then he heard a familiar voice coming from the closet. The voice belonged to Ambrosius, the octopus. She asked him what all the screaming was about. The Deep answered her by saying Homelander had gone completely insane and bit him. As he's pointing to the bite, it started to look more infected. His veins began to pulse and glow blue with the Compound V in his blood. Then the Deep realized, how can he be so stupid? Homelander was a zombie, and he infected him. The sudden realization started to fade as his mind was getting hazy and blood began to drain from his ears and nose. Ambrosius looked back in horror as Kevin began to rot and decompose before her eyes. The Deep grabbed Ambrosia out of her tank and started to eat her as she was crying out in pain, telling him to stop. Then silence. He ran out of his room looking for more prey like a shark on the prowl, as he spotted more interns running for their lives. Fog Tower was in lockdown as metal doors began to close everywhere. Easy pickings, Deep thinks, as his hunger was not yet satisfied. He starts attacking interns left and right, then stops eating them once when they become infected and start tasting like Compound V. The more people Homelander and the Deep attacked, the more the infection spread, where the whole building was being overrun by zombie soups. As alarms were blaring and metal doors were closing all around Fog Towers, zombie Homelander and the Deep were running out of food. While in their zombie states, they did have some ability to think, and seeing humans turning into zombie soups, Homelander got an idea. He wanted to spread the fires and turn humans into zombie soups, and farm the uninfected, making sure they have a never-ending supply of food. Homelander catches a blue blur from the corner of his eye. A-Train managed to run out of Vought Towers before all hell broke loose. Homelander uses laser vision to burn a hole through the protective metal doors and flies towards A-Train. It was a race for his life. He had to outrun Homelander, but it was no use. His heart was about to give out. Then he felt an intense burning sensation across his waist. Homelander uses laser vision again, this time carving A-Train in half. His legs were still running for a brief moment, as his torso began to slide off. Homelander hovers over A-Train with an intimidating grin. A-Train tried to crawl back, but the pain was too much. Then Homelander grabbed his arm and bites it, spitting out the awful-tasting compound V. The infection mixed with A-Train's super speed spread through his body instantly, turning him into a zombie. Then Homelander gave him a task: infect as many people as possible and let the hunger spread. And he did just that. He ran or crawled his way through the city with his speed, spreading the infection, causing a super zombie pandemic. The boys, Butcher, Huey, Frenchie, Starlight, and Kimiko, caught wind of what was going on. They took shelter out of the city and started planning their next move. Homelander, the Deep, and A-Train are now zombies, and they are purposely spreading the super zombie plague to make everyone they can into zombie soups, while leaving the uninfected to farm for later. They have an idea. They need Black Noir. There's no way that he'll still be loyal to Homelander, right? Black Noir is skilled with hand-to-hand combat, has increased strength, speed, he is incredibly stealthy, and he is really durable. So there's no possible way he got infected. The downside is, they had to infiltrate Vought Towers to find him. It just so happens that Starlight was a brief member of the Seven, so she knows the layout at the towers and where they were more likely to find Black Noir. They're driving through the city, guns blazing, energy beams firing, and they burst away into the now ruined Vought Towers. Kimiko and Starlight were killing the zombies, mowing their way to Black Noir's room, and when they opened the door, they saw a sight none of them will ever forget. Madeline Stillwell lying lifeless on the floor. Her stomach was ripped open, with a trail of blood leading towards a dark, shadowy corner. The boys hear gnawing, crunching, chewing, and faint crying. They walk closer to the sounds. Starlight's eyes begin to water as they see Black Noir, the key to stopping Homelander, eating Stillwell's baby. Butcher tells everyone to get the hell out of here. Then Black Noir tries to lunge at them, only getting stopped by Kimiko. She looks back at the group, then at the exit, and with a nod of her head, the group knew she was telling them that she got this, and to save themselves. Frenchie didn't want to leave Kimiko, but they had no choice. Butcher grabbed them and they ran for their lives. They got back in their car and drove off. What do they do now? What can they do? Starlight suddenly feels sick. Her nose and ears began to bleed. But she was never bitten. It was there the boys realized that all soups were infected. Okay, should I leave that part in about the whole baby eating thing? That's a little dark, right? Just a little bit. But it is somewhat of a reference to comics. I don't think YouTube is going to like this very much. Alrighty, and there we have it. 4 out of the 7 members of the Seven. And, yeah, that whole scene with Black Noir and the baby. Spoiler alert, that is a reference in the comics. I did change it because in the comics, Stillwell was a guy and he wasn't pregnant. And there was like a whole bit about Black Noir being Homelander's clone and Butcher taking pictures of Homelander. Well, it was Black Noir that he was taking pictures of, thinking he was Homelander, to blackmail Homelander. And one of the pictures was him eating the baby. Yeah, the comics are really dark. It's a mature comic. It's also a mature series on Amazon as well. So, you know, trigger warnings. So, yeah, anyway, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun YouTuber stuff. And, let me know if you want to see part 2. And, yeah, anyway, this has been the the boys in a zombie universe. I'll catch you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? Bootleg Popcross Studios, your mom said we have a home here. And welcome to this video where I take Marvel characters and put them into a steampunk world. And if you enjoyed what you see here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out with the ever-mysterious algorithm. And it lets me know you want videos similar to this one. So anyway, I think this intro is long enough. On to the video. Peter Parker was young when he lost his parents. He heard all throughout his life that they died in a Zeppelin accident, but he always had a hard time believing this. He was adopted by his aunt and uncle, and even though they didn't have a lot of money, they made up for it in their love and support for Peter. But they had been hiding a secret from him up until he started to attend high school. Peter was now old enough to learn about the Great Web. When people die, they are reborn as spiders in this ever-expanding web, and it is their job to catch wayward souls for God to feast upon. Both Aunt May and Uncle Ben extended their hands to Peter, telling him to join them and their fellow members in a church of spiders. Peter did not know how to react to this, but he didn't have much of a choice. May and Ben took Peter to the church and asked him to put on a red and blue robe as the ceremony was about to begin. He sees his fellow classmates there: Gwen Stacy, Eugene Thompson, Miles Morales, Cindy Moon, and Edward Brock, all on the stage looking as confused as him. Suddenly, Norman Osborn, the founder of Oscorp, walks up in a green and purple robe. He starts to give a speech about their spider god and the Great Web, then pivots to a eulogy about the members who lost their lives and are now serving God. He asks the new members to hold out their hands and expose their wrists. Everyone does that, and Norman pulls out a jar of sickly looking spiders from his sleeve. He opens the jar, shaking the spiders on their wrist. Then, one by one, the spiders bite them all. Norman adjourns this meeting and instructs the parents of the new members to put their kids to bed and keep an eye on them, and if they pass in their sleeps, don't feel sad for them. It was just their time to go and serve God on the Great Web. After Peter hears the possibility of his own death, he becomes very worried. May and Ben took Peter home. He tried to fight them off, but he was progressively getting weaker, and then he collapsed. He wakes up in bed, still feeling weak with a high fever, and sees a small clockwork spider on his dresser. The spider doesn't move, but it looked like it was watching him. Peter would slip in and out of consciousness. All he could think about was his parents. Peter wakes up again, this time feeling like he can take on the world. He felt stronger, and he didn't even need to wear his glasses anymore. He runs down the stairs full of energy, even doing a small wall run as he makes it to the living room to greet his aunt and uncle. May and Ben were so ecstatic that Peter survived, and they all hug each other. Peter was confused though when they said that he survived. Then he remembers. They forced him to join this cult. News spread that all the new recruits survived as well, and they would all meet up after school to talk about what was going on. Gwen brings up that she noticed Norman was wearing makeup and said that she thought she saw a small green patch on Norman's face. Miles asked everyone if they believed in the Great Web, and everyone answered no, and their parents forced them to join as well. Peter asks why they can't just leave, then Eugene replies sarcastically with, "There's only one way out, death." After saying that, everyone tells Eugene to shut up, but Peter thinks he has a point. Peter would eventually start seeing his friends less and less, and then stop seeing them entirely. He would spend most of his time cooped up in his room, reading and studying. The clockwork spider was still in his room. He figures it was some kind of religious totem that all members have, but he hates the fact that it feels like it's watching him, so he turns it around. But as he did this, it turns itself back around, staring at him. He then moves into his closet and goes back to his book. He hears scurrying and looks back to his dresser just to see the spider watching him again. He grabs it and throws it out the window, watching it break when it hits the ground. And he goes back to his book again. He wakes up the next morning to see another clockwork spider on his dresser. After that, he decides to spend more time at the library, away from that spider. He starts to read a book about radiation written by Dr. Brutus Banner, and it describes the side effects of a person undergoing radiation poisoning. This perfectly matches what him and his friends went through. The spiders that bit them were irradiated, but why? He met up with the science teacher, Dr. Kirk Connors, at the school and to discuss more about radiation. This wasn't really his field of study though. He was more of a DNA specialist, but he had heard about scientists at Oscorp splicing animal DNA with radiation to create cures for diseases. That explanation convinced Peter that Norman was using members of the cult as human test subjects. But his thought was interrupted by Dr. Connors telling Peter that he was late for church. Peter had a strange tingle feeling in his head and was confused. How did he know about the church? Connors replied to Peter saying Norman is an old friend of his, and because of him, he got his arm back, and is forever in his debt. Kurt brought Peter to the church where Norman was waiting for him. He brought Peter up on stage, and Norman announced that Peter, who has a gift for science and knowledge, is now able to ascend the ranks. Norman revealed that he was keeping an eye on everyone to see if they were ready to level up, but he can only pick one member to truly ascend to become the host for their god. And as he says this, his son Harrison Osborn wheels out a big container holding an amorphous black mass with tendrils that resemble spider legs. This gooby blob looks angry or maybe scared. Every time Norman gets close to it, it starts swimming around like it was trying to break the glass, and would even grow black spikes and hide in a corner. But when Peter is near it, it almost looks like it can sense Peter's resentment to this church, and it calms down. Peter places his hand on the glass, and the blob mimics this behavior by placing a tendril on the inside of the glass and shaping it into a small hand. Norman tells his son to open the container, and the blob lunges towards Peter, and it covers him head to toe in this black featureless suit as it sinks into his flesh, making him look normal again. Everyone cheers, except Edward Brock, who sulks out of the church. Peter will hear a deep voice in his mind. In this deep growl, the voice says,
"Everyone is not safe."
And that tingling feeling comes back when Peter stares at Norman. The Parkers went home, but Peter splits up from his aunt and uncle, saying that he's going to hang out with his friends. He runs to an alley and checks if the coast is clear, and starts talking to this god. It explains that it is no god, but a being from space, who was inside of a meteorite that crash landed in Central Park. It was found by Norman Osborn, who was walking with a limp and a cane. He ordered his men to contain this creature, and back at the lab, they experimented on it. They found out that this thing needed to bond to a host through symbiosis in order for it to stay alive, but it refused to bond to Norman because they were not compatible. This symbiote senses that Peter was not like any other human. He had a trace amount of Spire DNA and asked Peter if he tested out his new abilities. Peter tells the symbiote no, but he does feel stronger now, and he has a tingling sensation whenever he's in danger. The symbiote then tells Peter to climb this wall. Peter was hesitant at first, but he placed a hand on the wall, and then his other hand, and then he started to climb up it like a spider. As he makes it to the top, the symbiote tells Peter to run off the building. Peter refuses, but then his legs start moving on their own, and as they jump off, the symbiote shoots a black thread from the top of Peter's hand, and they swing across the New York skyline. The symbiote tells Peter to hold his breath, asks to not breathe in the smoke and steam coming from the pipes and chimneys. They stop at the top of the Empire State Building so Peter can catch his breath. This was actually a lot of fun for him. Swinging in the air like that was the first time that him and his symbiote ever felt free. He jumps off and starts swinging more and sees a man trying to mug someone. The symbiote covers Peter's body in a black suit with wide eyes to protect him, and they jump down in front of the mugger, terrifying him. The mugger runs off and Peter fires a black web at the guy, tying him up. The person thanks him and asks for his name. He takes a minute to think of a fake name and says, "I'm your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man," and swings off at night. This would be a nightly thing for him and the symbiote to do. They'll go on patrol and fight muggers and robbers. And before Peter knew it, he started to become famous. He would let this fame go to his head and would even be more aggressive towards the criminals he encountered, beating them within an inch of their lives. But he would never try to kill anyone, thinking that people, no matter what they've done, deserve a second chance in life. Peter hears sirens coming from the distance, and as he follows the noise, he finds the police surrounding his house. He asked the police officer what the problem was, and then he saw 2 body bags being loaded into an ambulance. The officer told him 2 people were murdered here, and immediately Peter knew he lost his aunt and uncle. He hears the cops saying they found the suspect heading to an abandoned church, and he runs off, allowing the symbiote to cover his body again. He finds the church and sees a silhouette in the window. He swings into the window, breaking the glass, and sees Edward Brock with blood splattered all over him. He tells Peter that it should have been him. He should have been chosen to be God's host. Peter says nothing, not even a quip. Instead, he starts throwing punches at Edward in blind rage. Edward taunts Peter, asking, "Why are you mad at me? You hated your aunt and uncle for forcing you to join. I did you a favor." This infuriated Peter more. He was forced to join, but everyone there was brainwashed by Norman, including Aunt May and Uncle Ben. They didn't deserve to die. Peter picked up Edward and held him out the window. He hears the symbiote telling him to let go, but Peter couldn't bring himself to do it. He starts feeling his fingers moving on their own. The symbiote was trying to control him, but he fights it and throws Edward back inside. Peter was wrestling with the symbiote and knocked into a bell, which caused the symbiote to writhe in pain. He keeps ringing the bell and forcefully removes the symbiote from himself, and he collapses in exhaustion. He wakes up to see both Edward and the symbiote gone. Some time passed, and Peter was living in a cheap apartment in the city. Without the symbiote, he would need to make himself a new suit. He created goggles with interchangeable lenses, which can magnify his vision, and a wrist-mounted grappling hook with a spool of rope which he carries on his back. One night on patrol, he sees a mugger, and when he swings in to help the bystander, a portal opens up under the mugger's feet, which leads into a jail cell. The bystander runs off, and Peter sees a man with clockwork hands hovering above him. He says to Peter, "Spider-Man?" Welcome to the Avengers. Henry Pym is a brilliant scientist. You might even call him a mad scientist. He created what he calls the Pym particles, a subatomic particle that has the ability to shrink and grow objects and organic matter. He is also one of S.H.I.E.L.D's top scientists. Henry was always so wrapped up in his work, so much so that this was one of the reasons why his wife, Janet Van Dyne, left him. Another reason is he is a very unstable person. Henry would create a jumpsuit with a gas mask hooked up to 2 oxygen tanks on the back. One tank has Pym particles that will make a person shrink, while the other tank has the particles that will make a person grow. He demonstrates the suit to Nicola Fury, showing that S.H.I.E.L.D. agents can shrink down to the size of an ant, giving them a greater advantage to stealth. Nicola Fury loves this idea and orders Henry to make more suits. Later that night, there was a break-in at Henry's mansion. Someone had stolen his first prototype suit. There's a string of robberies and nobody was sure who the suspect was. The main culprit was an ex-con named Scott Lang, but he has a strong alibi. He was working as an ice cream vendor when the robbery was taking place. At least, that's what he wants everyone to believe. He robbed Henry's house and had one of his friends cover for him at his shop. This isn't Scott's first rodeo. He did time because he's a well-known cat burglar, but he doesn't do this so he can be rich and famous. He does it because he's a single father caring for a daughter with little to no money to his name. On the night of the robbery, Scott breaks into the mansion and starts looting it. He sees a light coming from behind a bookshelf. He starts taking books out one by one until he hears a click and a secret door opens. He walks in and sees a strange jumpsuit with a gas mask that looks like it resembles an ant's head. He hears sirens and grabs the suit, but he has no room in his bag. So he puts it on, and as he buckled the harness, his hand slipped on a big red button in the center, and he shrinks down. He has no idea what just happened, but before he can figure out how to return to normal size, he runs out of the house. As he's running, he's trying to find a place to hide, and sees a big dirt mound and hides there. Suddenly, an ant that looks like the size of a horse steps out in front of Scott, terrifying him. The ant would smell Scott using its antennas, and it would walk away and join a long line of ants passing by. Scott will leave the anthill and run far away from the mansion as possible, where he would fiddle around with the harness, trying to figure out how to grow back to his normal height. He found a button and pressed it again, hoping he wouldn't shrink more, and he returned back to normal. He would hide the suit at his friend's house, knowing the cops wouldn't search there. Scott was sure that selling the suit would be a good idea, so he kept it and figured he could use the suit to rob more mansions. He was testing up what all the suit can do, and learned that the gas is what makes him shrink, but he only had a limited supply of it and has no idea how to make more. He also sees some discs in the pouch. One has a red light and the other has a blue light. You place the one with the red light on a box and press the button and watch as the box shrink. He then switched to the disc with the blue light and the box grew. He also noticed antennas on the mask and puts it on and he hears nothing. He saw an ant crawling up on his countertop and was looking up back at him. He leaned closer to the ant and told it to leave, and the ant listened to him and walked away. So now Scott knows how the suit works, so he comes up with plans to rob more houses. As news spread of this mysterious cat burglar, Scott knew it was time to put his suit back in hiding for a bit. That was until he heard a buzzing sound and felt something sting the back of his neck. His vision went hazy, then he passed out. He would wake up in an interrogation room in S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. There he sees a man in a black trench coat and an eye patch, with what looks like a wasp flying right next to him. He introduced himself as Nicola Fury, and the wasp grew. It was a woman wearing one of the shrink suits, except she had wings on hers, which Scott felt jealous about, and now he wanted wings on his. She introduced herself as Janet Van Dyne and asked Scott why he stole her ex-husband's suit. Scott was refusing to talk. Instead, he asked for his lawyer, which Nicola replied back saying he stole government property, which is grounds for treason, but he's willing to let it slide if Scott can help Janet find Henry Pym. S.H.I.E.L.D. was suspicious of Henry of being a Hydra spy. They think this because Janet was following Henry in her own shrink suit when the robbery was taking place. Henry went to a Hydra meeting where he would step on stage and show off his new yellow and black shrink suit. Scott has a choice to make, either go to prison for treason or track down the man whom he stole from. The choice is obvious, but if he's joining them, then he wanted wings as well. Janet gave Scott a small robotic ant that Henry made. It has wings and a handle so Scott can ride on it, and off they went. They found Henry's car, but no sign of Henry anywhere. They see a note inside, and it says, "I want what you stole from me. If I don't get it back, I'll take what is yours in return." The note was written on the back of a picture of Scott and his daughter Cassie, with X's over her eyes. Now Scott is furious and flies back to his house with Janet following. They arrive and see nothing out of the ordinary. Scott sees Cassie and gives her a big hug, asking if she's okay. She answered, of course, in confusion. Suddenly, Scott hears a buzzing sound, and he was hit by a shrink disc. As he shrinks, he sees a man in a jumpsuit similar to his, but His was yellow and black with discs on the shoulders. He reveals himself as Henry Pym and follows that reveal with an Hail Hydra as he fires a small bolt of lightning towards Scott. Janet takes Cassie to safety as she sees two tiny people fighting. Henry was firing small bolts of electricity while Scott was running to find something he can use as a weapon. He sees a pencil which to him looks like the size of a tree. Henry was flying towards Scott and Scott picked up the pencil by the eraser and swung it, knocking Henry aside. He had run out of the house while Henry was following him and Scott sees an anthill. He would lead Henry to the hill and yell charge. Suddenly the whole colony of ants started crawling out and charged Henry. Henry was firing bolts of electricity hitting some of the ants, but he was being overwhelmed. As the ants were biting his suit, they must have bit through an emergency valve preventing Henry from breathing in too many Pym particles, and he began to shrink more and more. As Scott was watching this, he saw Henry shrink to the point where he would just disappear. He figured this was the end, so he enlarged himself back to normal. He found Janet and Cassie and they both were fine. Janet told Scott that he was pretty good in that suit, and asked if he needed a steady paycheck, he can go work for a group of other like-minded individuals. Scott asked, like S.H.I.E.L.D.? Janet replied with, no, the Avengers. Dr. Brutus Banner is a frail, meek person. He's like this because he had an abusive father growing up. The abuse was so bad that he developed dissociative identity disorder and created an alter named Joe Fixit, a tough, no-nonsense personality that Brutus wishes he could be. Over time, it seemed like this personality would quietly disappear in the farthest recess of his mind. That was until the accident. Brutus works as a scientist at S.H.I.E.L.D., creating weapons, and the one that made him the most famous, for all the wrong reasons, was a gamma-radiated bomb. Radiation was a hot craze at this time, but more research needed to be done to find out about its lasting impacts on the human body. While testing the bomb, he sees a teenager in the blast site. He tried yelling at the teen to run away, but he couldn't hear him. The countdown was ticking, and Brutus ran into the field. With seconds on the clock, Brutus tackles the teen in a ditch, protecting him from the blast. But Brutus was unfortunately irradiated by the gamma explosion. Brutus would wake up at the S.H.I.E.L.D. medbay. Surprisingly, he didn't have a scratch on him. No burns, no scar tissues. He was totally fine. That was until night struck. When his body was hit by the moonlight, Brutus would transform into this hulking gray creature filled with so much unbridled rage. He would break out of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters and wreak havoc in the city. Then he would wake up back in his childhood home. The home was a wreck, and all the pictures of Brutus' father were torn to shreds. As Brutus walked out, he was greeted by the sight of the U.S. Army surrounding his house. He was arrested and locked up in an underground facility surrounded by thick walls of concrete. He would be interrogated by General Thaddeus Ross, his soon-to-be father-in-law. He would ask Brutus what happened, but Brutus didn't have an answer. He just blacked out and woke up in his old home. Ross didn't like his answer, and things were getting heated very quickly. Thaddeus Ross never liked Banner, but now he downright hated him, calling him a monster, and swears if he goes anywhere near his daughter again, he will not hesitate to kill him. Brutus' eyes were glowing green, and Thaddeus smiled, saying, "There's the monster." He would put on a gas mask, and the room would fill with knockout gas. Brutus would wake up in a daze, and realize there was no way out. At first, he thought that this was for the best, but the raging Hulk inside him would disagree. He would start to transform, but instead of turning gray like before, he would turn green, and starts punching the walls. The gas will fill the room again. At first, it looks like Brutus was about to fall asleep, but this will infuriate the Hulk more, making him withstand the effects of the gas. He would break free and run far away. He would find a cave and rest there for the night, eventually turning back into Brutus Banner. Seems like the army hasn't found him yet, so he would sneak back into the city with guards surrounding his house. Seeing this, he would find Betty Ross, his fiancée, and ask her to grab as much of his supplies as she can. She did just that, and Brutus would experiment himself to see what exactly was going on. After his latest transformation, it looks like he no longer transforms at night. But now the transformation is triggered by an increase in adrenaline caused by intense emotions, mostly anger. If this is the case, and the military is after him, Brutus nor Betty is safe here. So Brutus decided the best thing to do was sneak out of America and learn how to control his emotions. He would travel the globe, never staying in the same place for too long, and learn how to meditate. He learned a breathing technique that will help him calm down if he ever feels the slightest rise in adrenaline. He would take odd jobs wherever he goes to make some money to live off of, and while working at the loading docks, he sees the US ships in the distance. In a panic, he would run and hide in a factory, and the US military would surround it. Brutus was panicking. He tried the breathing technique and it would work for a minute, but his heart was still racing, and then he felt his mind going blank. Suddenly, the Hulk would charge the hallways, pushing and throwing soldiers away from him. They started to open fire, but the bullets were bouncing off him, making him angrier. Suddenly, Thaddeus showed up and would walk closer to the rampaging Hulk. But he wasn't there to instigate any more violence. Instead, he was trying to calm Brutus down. Of course, the Hulk wasn't buying it, but then Thaddeus mentioned that Betty is in danger. Hydra kidnapped her along with the rest of S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists. This enrages the Hulk more, but instead of getting stronger, he would turn back into Brutus, knowing that Brutus was smarter than him and could figure out a way to save Betty. They went back to America, and Brutus designed a device he can wear on his wrist, along with several vials of gamma-radiated liquids he can use to inject himself with to forcefully transform into the Hulk. He would meet up with other heroes who called themselves the Avengers, and now it is time to take on Hydra. Dr. Stephen Strange was a world-renowned surgeon, and because of this, he developed a bit of an ego. He was rich and famous, but there was a Zeppelin accident that would change his life forever. The Zeppelin he was in got struck down by a strange man, clad in green robes, flying on a glider, laughing maniacally. He would wake up in a hospital covered in bandages, but when he looked down, he was mortified. His hands were too badly damaged by the accident and was amputated. Without his hands, he could no longer operate, and therefore he could never go back to his life as a surgeon. He was depressed, but eventually he heard word of a temple in Nepal called Kamrataj that could heal anything. Dr. Strange didn't believe in Eastern medicine, but he felt like he was out of options, so he traveled to Nepal, and when he made it to the steps of Kamrataj, they refused to let him in. He was furious. He traveled all this way, and for what? He refused to leave, even sleeping on the steps. Then suddenly, an old bald lady walks out, asking if he was worthy to learn their ways. Strange said of course he is, he healed people. Then the old lady interrupted him, saying he profited off of healing others. His motivations, although good, were corrupted by greed. Stephen looked down for a second, then the old lady opened the door, inviting him inside. She introduces herself as the Ancient One, and Stephen asks where all the equipment is. The Ancient One looks confused and asks, what equipment? Stephen replies back saying, this is a hospital, right? She shook her head and said, no, this is a school for magic. Stephen rolled his eyes. He came all this way for healing, and now he's going to be lectured with a bunch of mumbo-jumbo. He was going to walk out, but the Ancient One plunged her fist into Stephen's chest, releasing his spirit. He asked if she killed him. She replied with, no, this is an astral projection. Not bad for a bunch of mumbo-jumbo, huh? And with a flick of her finger, she flung Stephen into the mirror dimension. As he's falling, he sees the world warping around him, and sees reflections of himself. Some looking quite odd though. Some reflections look like him as a zombie, some as him in what he can only describe as the future, and some where he looks like an actor who could play Sherlock Holmes. He suddenly gets flown back into his body and begs the Ancient One to teach him. She was hesitant at first, but she knows Stephen has a good heart, and then she accepts. She gives him prosthetic hands and tells him to make them move. He tries, but nothing is happening. The Ancient One explains to him that magic isn't something that can be conjured up out of thin air, but instead the ability to harness the elements around them, control and bend them to whatever they can imagine. And if he can do that, then he can make his hands move. His homework was to try to move his metal hands. He would stay up all night and was about to give up, until he made his index finger move. It was a small improvement, but it was still a big win for him. He was at this for days, and managed to gain full control of his new hands. Now he is ready to master the art of magic. He would train in the dojo with other soon-to-be sorcerers, and they were practicing on creating portals. Stephen struggled at first, but he quickly mastered the spell, even with some students looking jealous. He would spend most of his nights studying at the library, and found a book that talks about the Infinity Gems. The Time Gem was acquired by Akamoto, an ancient sorcerer who placed a gem in a medallion called the Eye. Suddenly, Wong, the keeper of the books, grabbed the book that Stephen was reading, and tells him the Infinity Gems are off limits. Stephen will quickly master all the spells they were teaching in the class, but he still wants to know more about the Infinity Gems. He would be approached by the Ancient One as she congratulates him on his progress. She tells him about the title of Sorcerer Supreme, and Wong asks if this was a good idea. She said, of course, and bestows the Eye of Akamoto to Stephen, saying, your destiny awaits. Stephen accepts the gifts and promises to not let her or Kamatage down. He will learn how to use this amulet, at first rewinding time by making a half-eaten apple regrow its missing chunks. He would even try to peer into the future, first only be able to see a few minutes into the future, but the more he practiced, the better at it he became. As he's seeing into the future, he sees scientists working on a machine against their will, trying to open a portal. He also sees him and other heroes fighting this evil group. He knows what he has to do now. He thanks the Ancient One and travels back to America to set the events in motion. He first traveled to a mansion in the middle of the night and teleported a prototype shrink suit created by Henry Pym behind a secret door and waited for Scott Lane to arrive. He then leaves an anonymous tip to Thaddeus Ross about the Hulk's location, and lastly, he stops a mugging taking place and talks to a man with a clockwork grappling hook strapped to his wrist, welcoming him to the Avengers. Alright, and the art is now finished, and I'm really proud with how this turned out. I thought I knew more than enough to do a steampunk video. Turns out I needed to do a bit more research. All I knew is cogs, gears, and old-timey fashion. And really that's pretty much everything, and I feel like I translated that good enough in the art, but in the storytelling, I feel like I could have added a little bit more, but other than that, I am really proud with how this turned out. The Ant-Man one was really difficult because I don't really draw like a lot of characters like riding something, because not only are you drawing the character, but you're also drawing the vehicle, and you have to like position them in like a certain way to like not make it look bad. I feel the proportions are a bit screwy on this one, but I don't know, I'm still really proud of how it turned out, and it was a challenge for me, and therefore I felt like I actually did a good job on doing the challenge. I really like how the Doctor Strange turned out. I think it's the symmetry of it that looks really good. The Spider-Man one was the first one I did, and I just whipped that pose out. Spider-Man poses are very hard because they're trying to do like a spider-like pose on a human character. So they're like just bending and contorting in ways that people don't normally bend and contort unless you're like very flexible, I guess. So yeah, trying to do that is difficult, and he's not contorting too much, but I don't know, I always struggle with Spider-Man poses. I love Spider-Man, but the poses can be very difficult. So I felt like I challenged myself a lot in this, and I'm very proud with how this turned out. And let me know which one's your favorite too in the comments down below. And if you have any suggestions, let me know. I've been getting some suggestions lately, and I can't promise I'll get to them, especially right away, but I have been saving them into a text document, so there is a possibility that I will get to your suggestion. If it's a pop culture thing that I'm not too familiar with, chances are I might be pushed back to a far, far distant future video, so I can actually have time to do research, watch or read the media that I need to watch or read, or skim the Wikipedia at least. But yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know. I will hopefully get to them, but no promises. Or I might just tweak them enough to where I can do them. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this content to your friends if you think that they might enjoy it as well. Anyway, that's it. See ya. How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to this video where I take Ben 10 aliens and turn them into superheroes. Well, technically they already are superheroes, but I make them more human instead. Well, they're still aliens in this video. If you want to know what I mean, watch the rest of this video. Anyway, roll time lapse. Ever since Ben could remember, he wanted to be a hero. He would go to school dressed in a homemade costume, calling himself Ultra Ben. Of course, the other kids would bully him for this, so over the years he became more obnoxious and jaded. But when he sees other kids being bullied, he would jump in to protect them, although he would just end up getting them both into trouble. On his 10th birthday, Ben developed an intense fever. His body felt like it was on fire. His parents didn't know what was wrong with him, but his grandpa knew exactly what was happening. Ben was transforming into a Pyro Knight. Grandpa Max is part of the government organization known as the Plumbers. They were a secret group at first, and their job was to prevent alien invasions and keeping extraterrestrial life a secret. But all that changed after Vilgax the Conqueror invaded Earth. Back then, Omnitopia was the city of Bellwood, a small city where nothing special ever happens. But out of the blue, portals were opening in the sky, and robots were dropping out of them and wreaking havoc in the city. The Plumbers can no longer keep aliens a secret anymore, as Earth prepares for a war of the worlds. The Plumbers were joined by several alien species calling themselves the Omnitrix Tribunal, and together they stopped Vilgax. With the help of the Omnitrix Tribunal, Earth became a safe haven for aliens who lost their homeworlds from Vilgax the Conqueror, and Bellwood was renamed to Omnitopia to honor the brave aliens who lost their lives in the war. Grandpa Max is half Pyro Knight, and he thought his alien heritage stopped with him, due to the fact that his son never developed powers. But as it turns out, the Pyronite DNA skips a generation, and young Ben Tennyson was turning into one. During his summer vacation, Grandpa Max would take Ben and his cousin Gwen to Plumber's HQ to help them harness their new alien abilities. Ben can now transform into his Pyronite form at will, and in this form, his body is made up of pure fire and magma. He can shoot fireballs and fly using his hands and feet as jet propulsions. He would train with his grandpa every summer, and now in his mid-20s, he is a full member of the Plumbers, and he goes by the hero name Heat Blast. Vilgax the Conqueror has destroyed hundreds of planets in his lifetime, wiping out whole species of extraterrestrial lives. After he tried to conquer Earth and failed thanks to the Plumbers, Earth is now in the protection of the Omnitrix Tribunal, and its leader, Azimuth, has recruited some of Earth's smart scientists to help bring back extinct species. This is where Lenny Talbot comes in. He is a genius in DNA splicing, and thanks to Azimuth, who keeps records of DNA of many aliens stored in a watch-like device, he managed to replicate and clone a Phobomancer, a canine species that are entirely blind, but relies on special gills to help with smell and hearing. As not to waste a sample Azimuth gave him, Lenny would clone it using an Earth's dog DNA and mix it with a small piece of the Phobomancer DNA to create a hybrid. But more studies need to be done. Unfortunately, Vilgax had returned. Robots raided Lenny's lab, destroying everything they could, and started to attack him. Suddenly, Heat Blast shows up and sets the robots on fire, telling Lenny to make a run for it. In a panic, the wounded Lenny grabs a file of the Phobomancer's DNA and ran out the fire exit. He was badly hurt and fell on the ground, and with his vision fading, he looked back at his lab, now ablaze, and pulls out the file. He was bleeding out fast, and with nothing else to lose, he injected himself with the DNA, hoping the Phobomancer's healing factor could save him. Then he would pass out. He would wake up in the forest with his clothes tattered and his wounds healed. It worked! But his sight was gone, and his other senses had greatly improved to compensate. He smelled food coming from a distance and wandered his way into a bar. He didn't have his wallet on him, but once when the bartender saw how disheveled he looked, he told him it was on house. When he hears news on TV, they are saying Heat Blast and the Plumber stopped a robot invasion, and there were reports of a strange dog-like man running into the forest. The creature is wearing the same tattered clothes Lenny is wearing, and after noticing this, Lenny hears the bartender's heartbeat begin to race. As to not cause a disturbance, Lenny thanked the bartender for the meal and walked away. Could it be that the Phobomancer's DNA caused some sort of mutation? In order to test this, Lenny needed to experiment. He figured the transformation is caused by an increase in adrenaline, but how can he do that, especially without his equipment? Luckily, he didn't have to think too hard, as another robot invasion was happening again. Portals opened up in the sky, and robots were dropping out from them, and one landed right in front of Lenny. It was pointing a plasma gun at him, and Lenny started to feel strange. He started to transform. His muscles grew, fur and spines were growing as well, and his eyes sink into his skull. Then his remaining senses would heighten even more. Unlike before, Lenny actually has control in this form, and with his enhanced strength, he tore the robot's arm off and started to eviscerate it, ripping wires out with his teeth. Heat Blast flies in the scene, and is surprised to see the scientists he saved now in this new form. They both hear someone yelling for help, and rush in to save them. Lenny grabs the person and brings them to a safe area, while Heat Blast was melting the robots. Suddenly, a plasma bolt hits Lenny, and this would anger him. He went into a feral state and ran up to the robot, tearing it limb from limb. Heat Blast tries to tell him it's done, but Lenny snarls at him, baring his teeth. Then he suddenly stops and would transform back into his human self. Heat Blast congratulated him, but tells him he needs to learn how to control himself in his Phobomancer form. So he recruited Lenny to the Plumbers, where he would become the rare Phobomancer superhero, Wildmutt. Jeffrey Malachi came from a long line of geologists. All throughout his life, he heard his dad talk about the chromostone, a crystalline rock that was theorized to be the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs. It was his life's mission to find this stone, but he never did. When Jeff grew older, he followed in his father's footsteps, and he finally found the chromostone. He found it in a dig site. It was a small purple geode with a small crack. As Jeff was looking at it, the green light shined in the crack, and he heard a voice. He would look around, but no one was there. Then he heard the voice again, this time clearer. It was repeating the word hero over and over. Jeff looks down, and the green light would glow brighter every time he heard the word hero. He would pick up the rock ever so gently as to not break it. but it will crack open, revealing pink crystals with a green orb in the center. With one last utterance of the word hero, the pink crystal above the green orb elongated and stuck itself into Jeff's forehead. His eyes glow green and he sees visions of an alien world being overrun by robots. This world looks like it was made entirely of crystals, with crystal humanoids running around in terror, as a man with tentacles covering his face will look down on them in pride. This man is Vilgax the Conqueror. He destroyed this world eons ago. Preparing for Vilgax's arrival, these crystal beings created a crystal sapien to help them. But it was no match for Vilgax, and Vilgax destroyed it, or so he thought. As he blew up this crystal world, a chunk of the crystal sapien flew down to Earth, wiping out the dinosaurs with a shockwave, and waited in the crater for a worthy host. Jeff's eyes stopped glowing, and the pink crystals that lodged in his forehead sinked in further, causing the geo to fuse in his body. In his mind, Chromastone would instruct Jeff on how to use his new abilities. Jeff can now spawn green crystals as hard as diamonds all over his body. He can make swords and shields out of these crystals, and grow crystals from the earth by placing his hands on the ground. And he can fire crystal projectiles. He uses his newfound power to become a hero, not just for him, but also for Chromastone, who felt shame for not being able to save his home world. The media gave him a name, Diamond Head, and he would join a superhero group called the Plumbers. Suddenly, Chromastone felt something he hasn't felt in years. He sensed the arrival of Vilgax the Conqueror. Gregory Freak was a young, up-and-coming scientist who was researching interdimensional travel. His inspiration as a kid was a ghost-hunting couple, Jack and Maddie Fenton. They built a portal to what they called the Ghost Zone, and was responsible for their son Danny becoming the superhero known as Danny Phantom. Now as an adult, Gregory wanted to build his own ghost portal, to find out whether it leads to the afterlife, or another plane of existence. But he kept getting stuck. For some reason, the portal wasn't opening. Try as he might, he can't figure out what he was missing. So he traveled to Amity Park to interview the Fentons. But after answering every question, they refused to tell him how they made their portal, stating that in the wrong hands, it could be used as a weapon. And the fact that the portal itself is unstable, it almost killed their son and corrupted their old friend, Vlad Masters. The portal has to be shut down permanently, only being open to send any ghosts that escaped back to the Ghost Zone. Furious, Gregory stormed out of their house and traveled back to Omnitopia, to his dingy studio apartment. Suddenly, he heard a sonic boom, portals opening in the skies, with giant metal pods crashing down in the city, and then opening up into giant crab-like robots. Instead of being scared, Gregory was inspired. He sees the portals and knows that this is his ticket to creating his own ghost portal. But how did he get his hands on that tech? With a loud whoosh, the superhero known as Heat Blast flies by and starts firing at the robots, while the new heroes, Wildmud and Diamondhead, were at ground level, fighting them off. The battle lasted almost a whole day, but with flames and crystal shards littering cities, the heroes have won. Most of the robots were melted thanks to Heat Blast, so Gregory couldn't scavenge from them, but the ones that Wildmud and Diamondhead fought were perfect to scavenge from. He found what he was looking for, plus some crystals from Diamondhead to focus the beam and stabilize the portal. Now all he had to do was turn it on and step in. The portal struggled a bit, with green sparks bouncing around, but after a few seconds it turned on. Gregory started to step through, but he was feeling intense pain, almost like his molecules were on fire. But he pushed through and entered an eerie world. This world looks nothing like how the Fentons described it, and the longer he's in here, the more pain he feels. And with a distant whisper in the back of his mind, Gregory passed out. He would wake up a day later in his bed, wondering if it was all a dream. When he reached out to open the door, his hand faced through it. Ecstatic to realize that his success wasn't a dream, and even more that he accidentally gained powers as well, he decided to see what else he can do. He would train day in and day out to gain better control over his new ghostly abilities. He can fly, phase through solid objects, spawn black and white tentacles from his body, and possess living beings. He even has the ability to transform into a ghostly form, but this transformation was painful, as his head would flip upside down, and his bones start to elongate, forming long, sharp fingers, and his skin becomes super sensitive to the sunlight. But he needs to be in this form to use his powers more efficiently. After a week of training, more robots started to appear. Gregory threw on a protective hood that he made to counteract the sun's rays, and transformed to help the other heroes. Every time he transformed, the pain keeps getting worse, but he needed to endure it for the sake of the civilians. Not to mention, he also hears a voice in the back of his head. The voice started as incoherent mumblings, but now they are more prominent. While introducing himself to the heroes and fighting the robots, the voice kept getting louder and louder, saying,
I am no hero.
and
You will get everyone killed.
Gregory just figured it was his own self-doubt telling him these things, but when a giant metal arm was about to crush his family, the voice began to rejoice, saying,
Yes, let them suffer. Let them feel fear like they never before.
This wasn't Gregory's voice. He flew down to the family, dragging them away. They were terrified by his appearance, calling him a ghost freak, and ran off screaming.
What are you doing?
Said the voice.
You had them right where I wanted them. You don't deserve my power.
And with that, the voice boomed in Gregory's head.
You don't deserve the power of the scar.
Gregory started to feel that pain again. His skin, his molecules, his whole being started to fade away, only leaving the ectoneurite tyrant known as Siscar. He flew into one of the portals in the skies to meet an old friend of his once again, Vilgax. Alright, and there we go. This was a lot of fun, although in the Heat Blast time-lapse, I kinda screwed up on the prompt. So, instead of making a superhero base off of Heat Blast, I kinda just drew Heat Blast in spandex. So I had to redo it, and all I changed was really his face, added an extra finger, and changed the feet to be more boot-shaped. And I guess I could have swung more into the humanoid side of these heroes, because that was really the whole prompt. But I was running out of time for this video because I was working on something else for a friend. But other than that, I still like how the art turned out. Heck, I even like how Heat Blast looked before I changed him. Anyway, if y'all have a favorite, let me know in the comments down below. And you want to see part 2 to this story, or you want to see more Ben 10 related videos, give me some suggestions. Someone mentioned I should have Ben 10 aliens into different animes, which I might do in the future. Who knows? Anyway, with that being said, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the fun, fancy YouTuber stuff, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to this video where I combine DC heroes and Marvel heroes into a brand new-ish, original-ish superhero. This video was actually requested by Joseph Drew III, who wanted to see the Invaders combined with the Justice Society. And I really like this idea, combining two of the old teams together. I do have one exception though, which you guys will see later. That's because I mentioned this character a couple times in previous videos, so it really only made sense to introduce him in this video. So anyway, I think I rambled enough. So I really hope you all enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that fun, fancy YouTuber stuff. And now, roll time lapse. From the year of 2099, Steve Carter was an all-star athlete. But once news broke out that he used serum that was originally intended for the US military to create super soldiers, his career and stardom was taken away from him overnight. Before he became the jack football player nicknamed Gold, he was a scrawny kid from Brooklyn who wanted to make a name for himself. After he was kicked from the team, he took a job as a security guard for New Metropolis Museum of Superheroes. There he sees images and footage of Earth's mightiest heroes: the Devil Bat, Nightweb, Power Man, Wonder Drool, Lightning Fist, Thunderhawk, Iron Beetle, Fizzborg, Etra Oak, the Raging Demon, Dr. Constantine, the Hellblazer Supreme, Sea Panther, and many, many more. When he was a kid, he looked up to these heroes and wanted to be just like them, but he threw all that away because he wanted a shortcut to fame. While patrolling the halls of the museum, he sees a ring that is used by the Legion of Avengers, a superhero team from the year 2099. This ring gives its users the ability to fly. He also sees a small robot hovering the halls. This robot is assigned to give tourists information about all the exhibits. Finally, he came across a time machine, and inspired by the many displayed superheroes, he had an idea. He could travel to the golden age of superheroes, and use future technology and a super soldier serum coursing through his veins to become a superhero, and have his picture hanging in this museum. He would grab the Legion of Avengers ring and the museum robot he nicknamed Skeets, and traveled to 1940s America during World War II. He introduced himself to the world as America's first super soldier, Captain Gold, and enlists in the army to fight Hydra. He would be joined by his sidekick, a young kid who was thought to be killed during a fight. He also joins a super team called the Justice Invaders, and together they fight Hydra soldiers for the safety of America. But during one mission, Captain Gold made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave his life taking down the leader of Hydra, and it is presumed that he died in the frozen waters of the Arctic. That was until his body was discovered in modern days by the Justice Avengers, formerly named the Defending League. Now he is a member of the Justice Avengers, and even formed a long-time friendship with Tony Cord, the invincible Iron Beetle. But that friendship was soon dissolved during crisis of the Civil War, a war that broke out during two factions of superheroes, but that story would be told another time. Okay, so I know Booster Gold isn't part of the Justice Society, but I will be making an exception here because I have referenced Captain Gold in other videos, So yeah, Booster Gold will be my one exception for this video. The son of a doctor, the intelligent Robert Garrick went to university to study both chemistry and physics, where he would experiment in hard water to try and purify it, ridding it of radiation. His father, Dr. Emil Garrick, on the other hand, would be in grave danger. While he was operating on a mob boss, the rival to that mob boss storms in and forces the doctor to kill his patient by dragging his hand holding the scalpel across a major artery. Then, he threatens Dr. Emil by saying he will be charged with murder if he doesn't leave the country. Fearing for his life, he would take his son Robert and travel the globe using his skills as a doctor to heal people. Robert tries to experiment more on purifying hard water, but the test tube slips out of his hand and the fumes knock him out. Worried for his son, Emil performs a blood transfusion, but this act costs Emil his life. Robert will wake up with newfound super speed and become the hero known as the Wiz. He travels back to America to finally get his revenge on the mob boss that started all this and put him behind bars. But he knows he can do so much more with these powers. So he joins a newly found team of superheroes known as the Justice Invaders, and together they protect America from the evil Nazi party known as Hydra. Brian McNider was a skilled surgeon, and alongside his lover, Roger, they were both supporters of the Nazi party. That was until they learned about the horrors that this party does. They both were imprisoned in a concentration camp where they were experimented on. Through the bars of his window, he would see an owl flying by. Brian would befriend this owl by giving it scraps of his food and named it Hootie. Hootie would visit him every night, but suddenly, the camp was being invaded by Captain Gold and the Justice Invaders. Brian would hear gunshots and explosions as he was running out of his cell. He would look up in the sky to see if Hootie was anywhere near. Then a grenade was lobbed under his feet. Captain Gold throws his hard light hologram shield to block the explosion, but some debris still flung their way into Brian's eyes, blinding him. One of the scientists who was forced to work with the Nazis offered to help save Brian's life. Hydra was secretly reverse engineering the super soldier serum that gives Captain Gold his enhanced strength, and he injects Brian with it. Brian will wake up in a US military base with bandages covering his eyes, and with no words on the whereabouts of Roger. Suddenly he hears a thud at the windows, and in fear he rips the bandages off, revealing he could see. He ran to turn the lights on, but then his vision went dark again. He would then turn the lights off, and realizes he can only see in the dark. He searched for whatever hit the window, and found an owl. But not just any owl. It was Hootie, and he was very injured. Brian operated on Hootie, saving him. With his night vision and super soldier strength, he figured he could help the Justice Invaders and tried to rescue Roger. So he made special infrared goggles to help him see in his light, and donned the name Midnight Jack and joined the team. Millions of years ago, a meteorite crashed on the continent known today as Africa. This meteorite housed a rare mineral known as vibranium. Vibranium can absorb kinetic energy and release it, and the ancient civilians used this mineral to forge a new empire known as Atlantis. The citizens of Atlantis were way ahead of their time. They had tech on the same level as tech from the year 2099. But a civil war will soon break out. One faction called themselves Wakanda, and believed that vibranium was sent to their home from their panther god Bast, to be shared amongst their people equally. But the ruler of Atlantis believed that vibranium should only be used by whoever rules the throne. This war resulted in the sinking of Atlantis. Many people died, but some found that if they consumed a heart-shaped herb, they could mutate and survive in the ocean's depths. After many years, this new evolution of human, dubbed the Submariners, developed special lungs that allowed them to breathe underwater, and some, but not all, have blue skin and pointed ears. Eventually, the Wakandans and Atlanteans have formed a peace treaty and renamed their civilization Wakandis, ensuring that the surface dwellers will never find their hidden city. A new heir to the throne was born, but his appearance was odd. Namor Corrigan was born as a metamutant with small wings on his ankles. His appearance made him into an outcast, but that didn't stop him. As he aged, he became a detective in Wakandis and would solve murders, but nothing prepared him for the murder of his mother, the Queen of Wakandis. The clues to the crime led him to the surface world, where the murderer was a Hydra agent and his father, who was searching for the fabled vibranium. He used his trident to slay the human, and now he is king of Wakandis and he waged war against Hydra. He would join the Justice Invaders, but would later die in battle. But with his undying vengeance, his soul will be merged with a cosmic entity known as Astar, God's agent of vengeance, and become the Spectral Mariner. With no other king left to care for the throne, a new king was elected, Azuri, the first Sea Panther, and the grandfather to the modern Sea Panther, T'Challa Curry. Now, as the Spectral Mariner, it is Namor's job to carry out God's judgment on Earth, often killing those who deserve it in ironic ways. Alright, and this is the Justice Invaders. And I say this a lot in, I guess, every episode, but I really do like how the art turned out. The story, I guess I could try to stretch the story out a little bit longer, but I'll be honest, I don't really know much about these characters. I know about Booster Gold, Captain America, I know about Namor, or Namor, however it's pronounced. I pronounced it Namor in this video, but I heard it pronounced both ways. But like the Wizard, and Union Jack, Dr. Midnight, I don't really know too much about, and with the Spectre, I know some things, but he's the type of character who changes a lot. Like, he has different hosts, kind of like the Venom symbiote in Marvel. But yeah, the stories are short because I'm trying to fit like two characters that I don't really know too much about, like fit their origins together, and doing like some research, like some quick Wikipedia searches, just so I can get this video out on time. But yeah, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video, I hope you all enjoyed the story. If you have any more suggestions, let me know, because there is a chance I will get to them in the future. And yeah, I said in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to say it now at the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help out with the whole algorithm stuff. Small channel, kind of brand new, even though I did just revive this channel a few months ago, because this channel is like several years old. I've been like on and off on this channel, but I do want to keep uploading consistently now on this channel. And to help with that, y'all do your part too. And subscribe, like, comment. Like I said, it helps boost the algorithm. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll catch you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? I am not Steve, but welcome to this video where I turn Minecraft mobs into superheroes and villains. The last video gained 600 views, which extremely surpassed my expectations, so let's see if the sequel can outperform the original. Anyway, y'all know what to do. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's go on to the time-lapse. Craig Creek had an unfortunate childhood. He was born with hydrocephalus, scoliosis, really pale and rough skin, and an unusual third eye located on his cheek. He was bullied and harassed relentlessly growing up, to a point where he would run away as a teenager and never return home. He fled into a forest covered in pale oak trees, where he felt right at home. There were no people around to judge him. He almost felt content for the first time in his life. He suddenly heard a noise. It almost sounded like a heartbeat beckoning him. He would wander into the forest aimlessly, listening for the heartbeat. As he got closer to the source, the sound would get louder and louder. He found the source of the rhythmic sound, a tall, pale oak tree with a glowing orange center, pulsing with every beat. He placed his hand on the tree, and his heartbeat perfectly synced up with the tree's. Suddenly, flowers around the base of the tree bloom, and they look a lot like Craig's eyes, almost like Craig and his forest were linked together. Craig knelt down to get a better look at the flowers, and as he placed his hands on the ground, more flowers and moss started to grow. It was then Craig realized he had the powers to control nature, or at least in this forest. He would make a home in this forest and live out the rest of his life here, or at least he will try. A group of rowdy teenagers started to hike within this forest, littering and scaring the wildlife. This infuriated Craig, but he was going to leave them alone, hoping they would just leave. But one teen found a tree with a beating heart, and thought it would be really funny to carve his initials into it. He pulls out his pocket knife, and as the blade pierces the tree, Craig felt a stabbing sensation. Then he rips off a piece of the bark, and now Craig has had enough. He will sneak up behind the teen, grab the arm holding the knife, and bends it backwards, breaking the bones. The teen screamed in pain and fled the scenes with his friends. Craig picks up the fallen bark, cuts 3 eye holes, and puts it on his face, wearing it like a mask. A few years pass, and there was another disturbance in the forest. A real estate mogul with a bushy mustache and a girl with red hair walks into the forest with a group of lumberjacks. The man has a charismatic but also a conniving personality, and Craig knew he was up to no good. He would stalk the lumberjacks, and as they got closer to the pale oak tree, Craig would attack. The man with the bushy mustache came back, looking for the lumberjacks. but all he could find were axes and chainsaws on the ground. He turns around and sees Craig towering before him. The man was petrified, but Craig pointed to a clearing and uttered,
Leave now.
The man ran and put up a sign at the entrance to the forest saying, "Private property. Do not enter." Word will spread of Craig, almost like campfire stories. People were calling him the Creaking, on account his bones creak every time he moved. Some people didn't believe in the stories, and others will take this as a challenge to harass Craig like it was his childhood all over again. But be warned, if you ever enter the Pale Gardens, you may not come out alive. Chelsea Ray Spin lived a modest life with her family. She had a younger brother who she would look after while her parents worked in the mines. One day, Chelsea and her brother were channel surfing and came across the news.
Breaking news, there was an explosion at the mines. Sources say there was a man clad in green camo shouting and unleashing explosions from his hands. One of the explosions found its way inside the mines, causing it to collapse, and there was no survivors. If you know the whereabouts of this man who goes by the Creeper, contact the authorities immediately, but do not engage with him.
It was then Chelsea and her brother were orphaned. They both watched the TV with tears streaming down their faces, not saying a word. Both Chelsea and Webster were both born with powers. Chelsea developed her powers when she was a freshman in high school. She can spin webs, climb walls, camouflage with her surroundings, and has a strength proportional to a spider. And as for Webster, he had the same powers, but he can also grow long claws from his forearms and secrete a poisonous acid anywhere from his body, which he found out while he was being attacked by a bully, biting and hospitalizing him. They both could have saved their parents if they were there. Of course, they didn't know something like this would have happened, but they still felt guilty. It was then Chelsea devoted her life to becoming a crime-fighting hero, but with the knowledge of the Creeper taking her parents away from her, she decided the best thing to do was to eliminate this world of villains, saying they lost a chance to redeem themselves the minute they walked the path of evil. Webster, on the other hand, who had a history with mental illness, wanted to take revenge on the whole world, one person at a time. Chelsea donned an anti-hero persona, the Spider, and started hunting villains at night. She would gain a negative reputation in the hero community, but she didn't care. As long as there is one less villain in this world, then she knows she is doing her job. One night, she hears a scream coming from an alleyway. She rushed in to see a short man fighting a civilian. She webs him, telling him to stop. But then the villain spits in her face, the saliva burns, and the villain fires a web back at her. It was then Chelsea realized that the short villain was her kid brother. It was a stalemate, as both siblings were staring at each other, and the civilian ran away in a panic. "What are you doing here, Webster?" Chelsea asked in a stern tone. Her brother responded with, "Don't call me that. That name died with Mom and Dad. I and Cave Spire now, and this world will feel the same pain as I feel." What can Chelsea do? She can't kill her brother. She tells him to leave, but K-Spire wants to fight. Chelsea holds up her hands and tells him to fight her if he wants, but she refuses to fight him. Some time passes, and K-Spider is standing there in a battle stance, but he doesn't move. Instead, he jumps on a wall, climbing it, and runs away. This wouldn't be the last time Chelsea runs into him, but every time they fight, she tries to encourage him to stand down and turn himself in. But he always refuses. Chelsea will think twice about eliminating villains now. She will still kill if she absolutely needs to, but now she will use less lethal forms of attacks. Maybe some villains can redeem themselves, or at least that's what she hopes, because there might come a day where she would have to put down her own brother, and she fears that day might come soon. Daniel Wraith looked like your typical goth loner. They listened to metal music, wore gothic clothes, had piercings and tattoos, but they were hiding a dark secret. They were obsessed with watching people sleeping. They would sneak around the neighborhood being a total creep, peeping into people's windows, watching them as they sleep. They were a nuisance in this town, and would on many occasions be arrested for this odd behavior. They had a pattern. They had watched the same house for 3 days, and switched to a new house. But one night, things took a dark turn. They found a house to watch and waited in the bushes. On day 1, the person was awake, watching the TV. Day 2, the same thing. The person was on the couch, watching a cage match between a man in a bright pink leather jacket fighting a zombie riding a mutated chicken, not knowing they were being watched. On the 3rd day, he was eating takeout while playing a game on his computer. And on the 4th day, he was texting his friend, and the fact that this man hasn't slept in days infuriated Daniel. The person was walking to their door, and Daniel jumped into the bushes. He got into his car and drove off. Daniel would follow him to a nightclub and watch him while pretending to be a normal person. They watched this person leave and followed him out, and when the coast was clear, they would grab him and stab him 4 times, licking the blood off the knife, savoring it. They left a note in the victim's blood saying, "You should have stayed in bed." Not only was Daniel a weird stalker, but they also had powers. Their powers, like most people in Mojang, developed during adolescence. Their powers are vampiric. He needs to consume blood in order to live. They also have the ability to fly and have night vision. But they have one weakness: the sunlight burns their skin. News spread of this grisly murder, and the media called this killer the Phantom, on the account that nobody witnessed the attack. This inspired Daniel, so they made themselves a costume and became the notorious serial killer, the Phantom of Moyangia. Cooper Goldman is the younger brother of Eduardo Goldman, better known as the Iron Golem. Eduardo tried to keep his double life a secret from his family, but he wasn't very good at hiding his secret identity. Eventually his sister, older brother, Butler, and now Cooper all know about his superhero exploits. Cooper found out about his superhero persona after he was cleaning and reorganizing their mansion. Usually this was their butler's job, but Cooper has a really bad case of OCD and wanted to organize everything to his liking. And if something was out of place, he would make sure everyone knows about it. He was alphabetizing the bookcase in Eduardo's study, and as he pulls a book out, a secret door opens to what Eduardo calls the garage, a massive underground lair with different armored suits. Eduardo was on the Golem computer, listening to a police scanner as he felt a tap on his shoulder. He jumped out of his chair and ready to fight. Then he looked down to see Cooper. He came clean about being the Iron Golem, and Cooper shouted enthusiastically that he wanted to be a sidekick. But Eduardo refuses, saying it was too dangerous. Cooper revealed to Eduardo that he has started to develop powers, therefore he will be safe. Eduardo will question Cooper about his abilities. Then Cooper demonstrated by yanking some exposed wires from one of Eduardo's damaged suits, saying he can absorb electricity, but that's it. He can't get a power boost like the villain Creeper or shoot electricity back out. So unless they were fighting a lightning-based supervillain, Cooper can't be Eduardo's psychic. But this didn't sound like a no for Cooper. Eduardo allowed Cooper to stay in the garage as long as he doesn't reveal his secret. Cooper agreed, and suddenly the Golem computer started beeping. The Creeper was spotted in the mines fighting Rascal, the teleporting hero, and was losing control. Eduardo suited up and told Cooper not to download any games on the Golem computer. When he left, Cooper got to work building his own Golem suit. He was a smart kid for his age, and Eduardo left behind some blueprints out in the open, so he started building it and would hide it whenever Eduardo came back. He worked on the suit for days until he finished it. A copper suit with a lightning rod on the helmet, and a copper backpack so he can bring supplies and stay organized wherever he goes. After a week, Cooper would stay in the garage while Eduardo was out on patrol. Even though he was told not to, he downloaded a game on the Golem computer. It was an indie voxel game about survival and creativity, but suddenly he got an alert. The villain known as the Ravager was attacking people at a train station. Cooper suited up for the first time and made it to the location. He tried to say something cool and heroic, but once he saw the towering villain, he froze, almost looking like a statue. The Ravager charged at Cooper, but was then stopped by the Iron Golem. Eduardo grabbed the Ravager by the horns and threw him aside. He told the civilians to run and grabbed the still frozen Cooper and took him to safety, but as he was running, Ravager rams into Eduardo, knocking him over, throwing Cooper to the ground. Cooper watched in horror as the Ravager repeatedly stomps his foot onto Eduardo's head. What can Cooper do? He was so terrified he can't move a muscle. He sees Eduardo's helmet breaking, slowly revealing his face. He knew he can't let Eduardo's secret be revealed to the public, so without thinking, Cooper charges in to fight. His copper golem suit gives him a strength boost just like Eduardo's, so he leaps in the air and punches Ravager in the face. Ravager is now furious. How dare he get sucker punched by a child? He grabbed the kid and was about to tear him to two, until a man with gray skin and dark bushy eyebrows walked out of the shadows.
Heal, Ravager. You wouldn't want the blood of an innocent child on your hands, do you?
The man was Evoker Illager, a member of the Illager crime family and a skilled sorcerer. Ravager begrudgingly drops Cooper and leaves the train station with Evoker. Eduardo wakes up and thanks Cooper for the save back there, but also berates him for fighting crime when he specifically told him not to. But he realized Cooper is still going to do this. So if he was going to be a hero, he first needs to train like one. So Eduardo started Cooper's training sessions to prepare him for his new future as the Copper Golem. Alright, and there we have it. Minecraft mobs as superheroes and villains, and god, these titles are getting long. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really like how the art turned out. I say that in like every episode. Then again, I probably won't make a video where I make art that I don't like. Although that might be a good April Fool's video. Purposely make bad art. But anyway, that's future T Rav stuff. So yeah, I did left some Easter eggs in the Creaking backstory. So if you want to understand the full context of those, I will leave a link to the Skyblocks Kingdoms playlist. It's an SCP created by some of my friends who do Minecraft content, so if you like Minecraft Let's Plays, I do recommend checking them out. They make really good videos. Anyway, yeah, that's going to be it for this video, so if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all that fun, fancy YouTuber stuff. And I'll see you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! Happy holidays everyone, T Rav here, and in this video I will be redesigning Christmas characters for our superhero universe. But there's a twist. I'll be giving out the lore in rhyme. So sit back, relax, and don't drink too much eggnog, and I hope you all enjoy this video. Roll time lapse. Klaus Krinkle has a jolly soul. Rumors spread he gives criminals lumps of coal. But rumors are just that, not to be taken as fact, as he tries to help all, even if the cards are stacked. No matter if you're good or bad, life should be cherished and happiness should be had. But some folks decide to walk the path of wickedness, so it's up to Klaus and the Holi-Force to save the lives of the innocent. Klaus's powers are super indeed. He can fly, create constructs, have strength and super speed. He was born with these great gifts, but as he aged, his powers began to drift. In his prime, he was deemed as the best, but in his old age, it's time for a rest. He was practically forced into retirement, but he can't stand by as he sees the world grow more violent. His powers now only work once a year, so he eats his wife's cookies and down it with beer. These are special cookies that give him a power boost. Now Klaus is back and it's time to vamoose. Watch out criminals, you are on the naughty list. Klaus may be gentle, but he's not afraid to use his fists. As he puts criminals behind bars, he knows he won the fight. So happy holidays to all, and to all a good night. But our story doesn't end here. There are more characters near, and Mrs. Klaus is a hero whom villains most fear. Mrs. Klaus is powerful indeed. Her husband says she is stronger than him, and she agrees. She has the same powers as him, but she wasn't born with them. Instead, she is human. Klaus is from whom her powers stem. On Christmas night, she was out with friends, enjoying the city life until she feared her life would end. A villain attacked under the glow of the lights, demanding money or there will be a fight. But out of the blue, Klaus arrived, straight from the heavens, in a nosedive. He did a superhero landing and shattered the concrete. The villain gave up. He knew he was beat. Carol thanked the hero and offered to reward him, but he refused and said he has to hit the gym. She would be saved by him more times after that, and the closer we got, the more they chit-chat. Klaus revealed the secrets of his powers, as he gives Carol a bundle of flowers. Right there, he proposed under the moonlit glow. She nodded her head yes, and it began to snow. As Klaus married Carol, he shared his powers. Now she is a hero, at least after work hours. She maintained her double life for a while, but as Klaus retired, she picked up his fights, and she is the hero civilians most admired. She spreads cheer wherever she goes, offering baked goods to the needy, and their smiles grow. Unlike Klaus, her powers never drain. As she offered to stay by him, he abstained. He says the world needs a hero, and that hero is you. So go out there, be that hero, and fill my shoes. To help protect the world, Mrs. Klaus needed a team, so she created the Holi-Force, a hero group where happiness is the theme. Together they fight crime and keep the peace. Now that the world is a safer place, and crime has decreased.
Klaus wasn't the only Kringle, as he had a twin brother who was hard to mingle. Christopher Kringle is his name, and success and fame was his aim. Unlike his brother, he was born powerless, so he made a deal with a demon out of pure cowardness. He was jealous of his brother's abilities, so with dark magic he summoned a demon and was faced with hostilities. The demon's name is Krampus, and he wanted to strike a deal, his eternal soul for powers to wield. Christopher accepted the contract, and now possessed by the demon, his soul was extracted. Christopher is now Krampus, and with his demonic power he now possesses, he became an anti-hero, and now the villains are defenseless. Unlike his goody two-shoes brother, he puts villains down permanently. But maybe this was a demon trying to control him internally. He would have mood swings in his demonic form. As he tries to fight for control, his mind feels like a storm. As the years progress, he gained more control. As he tries to save more lives, he has justice to uphold. But he still hears a demon in the back of his mind. He feels like his entire being is in total bind. He went back to his violent ways to suppress a demon within. But as he did this, he felt like he disappointed his twin. He doesn't want to hurt people, and now he regrets his deal. So he makes the most out of it, while Krampus turns his soul into a meal.
Some people call Mr. Gregory Grinch a mean one. But really, what all evil has he done? He was born green, and because of that, he was bullied. But both his mothers tried to tell him he was good, indeed. As he grew older, he became a CEO of a toy factory. But he wanted more, he felt dissatisfactory. As he looked down from his penthouse and sees the world go by, he sees people celebrating the holidays, and he lets out a sigh. Christmas is hard for Mr. Grinch. Because of his childhood bullies, the memories make him flinch. He wishes people would just stop cheering and singing. With all that noise, his ears were ringing. Suddenly, he thought up a scheme. Maybe he can force people to join his holiday-hating team. He created a blueprint for a new toy, one that will hypnotize every girl and boy. He got to work and created it fast. Now it's time for the commercial to broadcast. The toy was a hit, great success. Now it's time for his plans to commence. Parents can't buy more toys if they had no cash. So, he hypnotized the kids to donate everything their family has. Now Gregory is richer than ever, but families are still celebrating despite his endeavor. The trance didn't last as long as he hoped, and now Grinch was arrested, and he feels like a dope. Gregory Grinch was so smart and slick, so he thought up a lie and thought it up quick. But the jury saw through his clever deceit, and now he's locked behind bars, counting his weeks. His fellow prisoners started to sing and cheer, while Gregory Grinch learns how to make toilet beer. While locked up, forced to hear singing, he looked back on his actions, and he started grinning. Maybe the holidays aren't so bad after all, and maybe Gregory Grinch needed this downfall. Some say his heart grew 3 sizes while in jail, and he became a new man once he made bail. He gave back all the money he stole and then some, shouting Merry Christmas to all, now go have some fun. He would join the Holi-Force, creating gadgets and gizmos, and this will prove he switched to the side of good, and it shows. Together he fights crime with the other heroes, hoping he could persuade criminals to stop being total zeros. He kept the name Mean One, but uses it ironically, and now he's a full-fledged hero, but he still speaks sardonically. His mothers were right, he is good indeed, and with a little more work, the civilians will agree.
And there we have it, holiday icons as superheroes. And I really like how the art turned out for this video, but I am more impressed that I managed to make the lore rhyme. Granted, I kinda cheated a little bit with the near rhymes, and sometimes the rhythm can be kinda off, but hey, I'm not a poet. Let me know which design is your favorite in the comments down below, and if you want to see any other holiday characters turn superheroes as well, let me know. Anyway, with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, you know what to do by now. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you all next year. Happy holidays, everyone. See ya! Angel's Grove is separated into 5 factions, each working together to keep their city a safe place. The Tyrannosaurus Monastery is where monks train in both strength and willpower. The Triceratops Spellcasting School is where wizards and sorcerers train in magic and wisdom. The Pterodactyl Archers train in both grace and accuracy. The Mastodon Guild is where warriors are born. And the Sabertooth's Den is where rogues, thieves, and assassins hang out to escape the public eye. But there's one place located in the heart of Angel's Grove where everyone hangs out to drink and participate in friendly fighting competitions. This place is called Ernie's Tavern, and many say it's the best bar this world has to offer. Our party of 5 were here drinking and sparring until the earth started to quake and darkness engulfed the city. This marked the return of the evil dark witch Rita Repulsa and her army of demon chimps. Suddenly, the party was teleported to a strange temple. This place looks like it was in ruins, almost like it was here for thousands of years, but the party doesn't recognize it. They are greeted by an automaton with a child's voice holding a stuffed bear. Suddenly, a blue elven face astral projects itself inside a glass tube, introducing himself as Sordon the Wise. He says he founded Angel's Grove with the other mighty rangers 10,000 years ago, to protect this world from the demons and their dark magic. He was watching the 5 factions, and handpicked the people whom he believed would be the next mighty rangers. And he chose this party to finally put an end to Rita's war. But the party, not only they didn't believe Sordon, but they also feel like he's intentionally leaving out important information. All through their lives they heard of a powerful wizard who was lost to time. The only remnants of his name was the letter Z inscribed on the walls of the Tyrannosaurus Monastery, and the party figured this wizard was just a myth, a legend created to explain why their city exists, not believing he was truly real to begin with. They rejected his offer and they walked out of the temple, and they found themselves in a desert. Suddenly they were ambushed by clay golems. This is what they all trained for. They were fighting them and they had the upper hand for a brief moment. But they were outnumbered, and now they were getting fatigued. Zack even lost a finger while fighting a golem with a blade for a hand, but Billy quickly cast a heal spell, regenerating his lost appendage. The only thing that could save them is to accept the strange wizard's proposal, and with that, magical coins manifested in each of their hands. These coins had images of dinosaurs that their factions were named after, and suddenly each party member was engulfed in bright colorful lights, a red, blue, pink, black, and yellow. And they were given magical armor, robes, and weapons that enhanced their strength, speed, agility, and accuracy. It also gave them memories of the past mighty rangers and their fighting skills, allowing them to fight like the ancient warriors that came before them. After transforming into their more powerful selves, they quickly wiped out these golems, and Sordon told them everything about Rita Repulsa and how she was once a ranger herself. But with her demon heritage, greed took over her, and she wanted to take control of the world. Her and Sordon, who was the first Red Tyrannosaurus Ranger, fought, and their battle was so intense that it created magical shockwaves that spanned across the globe, wiping out the dinosaurs. Standing on charred remains of what was once a beautiful jungle, Sordon was about to do something he vowed to never do. He was about to take Rita's life. He was standing over her body with his blade to her neck. He raised his sword and quickly swiped down, but he intentionally missed. Rita did unspeakable things, but he couldn't stoop down to her level. So instead, he opened a portal to the Dark Realm, a dimension of shadow and chaos, and banished her there. But right before she was sucked into the portal, she cast a spell on Sordon, and he instantly died on the spot. Eltarians, though, have a strange reaction to death. When an Eltarian dies, their soul astral projects out of their bodies, allowing them to live a second life as a spirit. But Rita, who was clinging onto the ground as she was fighting the gravitational pull of the portal, cursed Sordon's soul, leaving him trapped in an interdimensional time warp, meaning fragments of his soul is scattered across multiple dimensions and time. And with the curse being cast, Rita was fully pulled into the Dark Realm, trapped indefinitely. With Sordon's team gravely injured, it was up to his adopted son to rescue him from Rita's curse. His son's name is Alpha, and he was only a child when Rita killed him, which sparked civil war within the original Mighty Rangers. Luckily, Sordon saved Alpha by placing his soul in a mechanical body. Alpha, who studied magic from Sordon, located his soul fragments and teleported them to an enchanted glass tube. Sordon is now able to stay within this dimension, but he cannot leave this tube. The remaining Rangers created the city of Angel's Grove and separated it into 5 factions they have today, training each generation to one day fight Rita Repulsa, but over 10,000 years, the name Sordon and his legacy was lost to time, until today.
This party vowed to continue to fight the good fight and protect not only their city, but the world from the evil clutches of Rita Bandora Repulsa. They read the incantation inscribed on the back of their coins, and it roughly translates to, "It's time to metamorphosize," or as the party simply puts it, "It's morphin' time." When they say these words, they summon their magical gear and become the new Mighty Rangers. But because this party likes using the word morphin, they changed the party's name into the Mighty Morphin Rangers, and they are now Earth's protectors. Many people from different parts of the world, even those from the distant future, will be inspired by this team and become Rangers themselves one day. Some Rangers might come and go, some might switch sides from evil to good, and some might sacrifice themselves to protect this world. But rest assured, there will always be Rangers ready to save the day. Jason Lee Scott was born in the Tyrannosaurus Monastery where he grew up and trained in martial arts. He had a rival named Tommy Oliver, and they would get into fights practically every day. They always tried to outdo each other, but one day, Tommy went missing. The Tyrannosaurus monks went out looking for him, but after several months, they still had no words on his location. Jason vows to one day get stronger to help locate Tommy. Outside of training, he would frequently hang out at Ernie's Tavern with his friends. Billy, the meek but highly intelligent monk, who would often speak in what the party calls mage babble, where he would use long, scientifically accurate words. Trini, the unassuming rogue who would translate Billy's mage babbles. Zack, the strong knight, he was a powerhouse of the team, but he was also the team's bard, and would use his own made-up fighting style where he mixed stance and martial arts. Kimberly, the party's archer, she can hit a bullseye miles away at a mere glance, and with her graceful speed, she can run across the field and hide in a perch to fire more shots at her enemies, all while remaining elegant as well. This party, just like many others, first met in a tavern. Jason was participating in the annual martial arts competition, and his opponent was this mysterious man clad head to toe in green and gold robes. The announcer introduced him simply as the Dragon. With the first ring of the bell, they fought. Jason does a spin kick, and the Dragon quickly dodges out of the way, and copies Jason's move. Jason dodges the kick, and as the Dragon landed back on the mat, Jason tried to sweep his legs, but his opponent quickly jumps up, dodging that attack as well. Both Jason and the Dragon were evenly matched, almost like the Dragon knew his fighting style perfectly. Jason had a thought. Could this be Tommy? While contemplating this revelation, he was quickly struck in the face and was knocked to the ground. Jason's vision was fuzzy, and with echoing at the referee counting down, the bell rang, and Jason was defeated. He finally came to when he saw a small gnome healing him. The gnome introduced himself as Billy Cranston. Trini walks in holding a small sack of copper coins, gloating how easy it was to steal from the two bumbling janitors. Then she sees Jason and quickly tries to hide the coins. Jason lets out an exhausted laugh, saying he can't believe those two janitors used to bully him as a kid. Then he remembers. That guy he was fighting, that has to have been Tommy. He asks the two if they saw where his opponent went, but unfortunately they didn't. Billy asked if Tommy was the missing person from the monastery, and Jason answered him. Trini questioned if Jason really knew if it was indeed Tommy, and Jason paused for a second, and he said, without a doubt. They ran out of the tavern. It was dark with street lamps and the crescent moon casting light. Jason said he'll go north and tells Billy to go south and Trini to go east. But Billy doesn't want to separate the party, saying nothing good happens when the party splits up, and Trini agrees. Jason lets out a sigh and says they'll all go north then. While traveling, an arrow is fired at their feet, and a dwarf knight rams into Jason. Jason tells the others to find the archer while he takes care of the knight. Despite wearing bulky, heavy armor, the knight started dancing. Jason was confused, and the knight, who was half the size of Jason, punched Jason below the belt. Jason, eyes wide, falls to his knees, and the knight clocks Jason across the face. Billy casts a fly spell on him and Trini, and they find the elf hiding in the shadows. Trini says the elf is stealing her stick, and flies in tackling her. The elf quickly tries to grab an arrow, but Trini tauntingly waves the arrows in her face, saying she should have kept a better eye on them, and throws them to the side. Billy asks why they were attacking them, and the elf replied back saying she was hired by two people named Bulk and Skull, saying they've been robbed. Trini, with her palm to her face, mutters under her breath saying she can't believe they noticed her. What a critical failure. And she threw the sack of copper coins to the elf in embarrassment. The elf chuckled, saying she won't be bringing this back to them, saying Bulk and Skull are total jerks, and threw it back to Trini. She just wanted to look like she was doing her job, and will tell Bulk and Skull that the thieves ran off before they could catch them. After this weird introduction, the party formed, and Jason informs the new members about Tommy's disappearance, and thus they start their quest.
Billy Cranston didn't have many friends growing up. He spent most of his time in his dorm room at the Triceratops Magic Academy studying. He felt comfort in his books, and because of this, he became a savant in magic. He was so skillful in magic that he even created a flying carriage. But he still felt lonely. Whenever he would try to talk to people, he would go off on these long tangents using big words that common folks would have a hard time understanding. He would try to speak what most people call normally, but he just didn't feel comfortable doing that. He prefers using the longer, more accurate words. Because he's a gnome, he would cast fire on himself every day so he can look taller. And while floating to the city, a woman bumped into him. He didn't think of it much, but he noticed his pocket felt lighter. Then it dawned on him. He was robbed. He looks back and sees the same woman running across the street. Billy hates confrontation, but he needed his money to buy more spell components, so he flies after her. He chases her down an alleyway and politely asks for his money back, but he worded it in a very confusing and technical way. The woman looked confused, then Billy reiterated, but in a more simplistic way. She said she understood him the first time. She was just confused as to why he said it like that to begin with. Billy says that's just how he speaks. Then in excitement, he explains she can understand him. She asked Billy to keep his voice down, and said yes, she can understand him. She introduces herself as Trini, and Billy was going to introduce himself, but she already knows his name because she looked at his ID before he found her. Trini returned his money, and Billy asked why she stole from him. She replied back saying she was training for the Saber-Toothed Rogues Guild, but obviously she needed more training. Then she came up with an idea. If she had a spellcaster with her, maybe she could get away faster if Billy casts a speed spell. Then asked Billy if he's up for tagging along with her. Billy was ecstatic. Not only he found a friend, but she can also understand his weird mage babble as well. But he wasn't too comfortable with robbing people. Trini says she would be the one doing the robbing. He would be more so her accomplice. Billy hesitated for a bit, then agreed, but they can only rob bad people. Some time passed and they were hanging out at Ernie's Tavern, watching the martial arts competition. While people were distracted with the fight, Trini was sitting around pickpocketing people. Billy was watching the fight and cringing whenever somebody got hurt. The next match started, and it was Jason from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery up against a strange man named the Dragon. Billy watched as these two evenly matched people were fighting and mirroring each other's moves. The fight ends when Jason gets knocked out. Billy couldn't take much more of the violence and dragged Jason out of the ring and cast a heal spell on him, waking him up. Billy didn't realize it at the time, but this was the start of a more phenomenal adventure. Trini Kwan was raised in a Saber-Tooth's den, a safe haven for rogues to relax and escape the public eye. Here, the only rules are no stealing from your fellow rogues, and don't get caught stealing from your fellow rogues. If you're the best of the best, you can join the Saber-Tooth's Rogues Guild, a group of highly trained thieves and assassins. Trini wants to be the best, so she adventures out the city casually bumping into people, quickly taking items from their pockets. This is how she got by. If she was low on funds, she would walk through the city stealing from people. Occasionally, she would get caught, and has to run and hide before she could get arrested. And if she needs to fight, she can hold her own in a duel. At a young age, her grandfather trained her in martial arts, perfecting the Mantis style. Because she was still training on how not to get caught, she would go into the city in a disguise. She would often dress as a boy, and gave her persona the not-so-clever name, Boy, spelled with an I. She was walking through the city and sees a gnome floating, wearing the uniform for the Triceratops Magic Academy, an elite school where the rich learns how to cast spells. She was thinking this gnome must be loaded. So she did her usual techniques. She bumped into him, quickly taking contents from his pockets, and ran off. She didn't realize it, but the gnome noticed her. As she was running, she counted the coins. It wasn't much, especially for a person going to such an elite school. She read his student ID. His name is Billy Cranston, and she looks back and sees him on her tail. She ran to an alleyway and it was a dead end, so she got ready for a battle. But the gnome politely stammered his way into asking for his money back. The gnome obviously didn't want to fight, so she gave back his money. She asked why he didn't have much on him, and he replied back saying he was only enrolled in that school because of his high intellect. In fact, his family didn't have much money to begin with. They weren't poor by no means, but if Billy wasn't gifted, there would have been no way for him to join that school in the first place. Trini asked Billy if he wants to join her, and he enthusiastically agreed, but if only they robbed from bad people. Trini agrees, and she knows just who to rob next. They saw a sign up in Ernie's Tavern saying there will be a martial arts competition by the end of the week.
There would be a huge crowd and everyone would be too distracted by the fight. She would make a plan with Billy, and the night finally came. It was a packed house, and people were cheering and drinking. Billy would keep an eye out, make sure people wouldn't notice Trini. Trini sneaks around and sees two janitors, one big orc named Bulk, and a scrawny elf named Skull. They were the town's ruffians causing trouble wherever they went, but now they're two bumbling idiots who still act like they are teenagers with attitudes. Instead of doing their jobs, they are watching the fight, even trying to mimic the moves, but because they both weren't athletic, they are continuously hurting themselves. When the time was right, Trini snuck behind them and grabbed their coins and placed them in a small sack and returned to Billy, healing one of the fighters. The fighter woke up and introduced himself as Jason, and asked if they saw where his opponent went. They didn't, and Jason ran out of the tavern, and Trini and Billy followed. Bulk and Skull were about to order a drink, but they realized all their money was stolen. They looked around the tavern and saw an archer and hired her to find the thieves. She agreed and located the thieves running north. A guard from the Mastodon Guild saw everyone running out and followed. The archer fired a warning shot at their feet, and the knight tackled Jason. Trini located the archer thanks to Billy's flight spell, and tackled her to the ground, stealing her arrows. The archer revealed she was hired by Bulk and Skull, and now Trini feels embarrassed. That Bulk and Skull, the town's idiots, noticed her stealing from them. It was then she realized she needed more training than she thought. Zack Taylor was raised in the Mastodon Guild, where he learned how to be a noble knight. He learned how to fight for his city and prepare for the inevitable arrival of the Dark Witch Rita Repulsa and her army of demon chimps and clay golems. Zack was a bit rebellious though. The role of a knight brings a lot of class and honor, and sure, Zack is not uncouth by any means, but his style of fighting is less like a noble knight and more like an overconfident bard. He combined dancing with martial arts, and his fellow knights feel only embarrassment whenever he starts dancing on the battlefield. Zack didn't care though. Fighting like this makes him feel unique, and less like a no-name drone like the rest of the guild. Zack is also a dwarf, and therefore he has to work extra hard to prove he's just as strong as a human or the orcs at the guild. And dancing on the field gives him that extra speed boost and agility he needs. Also, it catches his enemies off guard as well. He knows some of the younger crews watching him train, and they were in awe of his fighting style. So he started a class called Hip Hop Keto, at the dismay of his commander. He was told to stop teaching the recruits his ridiculous fighting techniques, and as a punishment, he was forced to guard Ernie's Tavern during what could be his busiest night yet, without pay. Ernie's Tavern hosts an annual martial arts competition every year, and this night could be the largest crowd he ever saw. Zack was standing guard at the entrance. He would periodically peek through the tavern to watch the fight and wish he could go up and show off his own moves. After several hours passed by, Zack was standing in front of the door, looking up at the stars. Suddenly, three people ran out of the tavern: a man from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery, a gnome from the Triceratops Magic Academy, and a woman from the Sabertooth's Den. These people looked like they were chasing after someone, but Zack didn't notice anyone else leaving the tavern. They were running north, and a woman from the Pterodactyl Archery School, followed by a bulky orc and a scrawny, lanky elf, ran out of the tavern, following them. The orc said they were robbed, and hired the archer to find the criminals, and the elf just reiterates what the orc said. Zack said he will help, and ran off after the three people. He catches up to the group and sees an arrow being fired at their feet, and tackles the monk. The other two use a fly spell to locate the archer. The monk gets in a battle pose, and Zack starts dancing. With confusion on the monk's face, Zack, who was at the sides of the monk, immediately punches the monk below the belt. The monk fell to his knees, and Zack asked him to return what they stole, and struck the monk across the face. The monk said it was the girl who robbed Bulk and Skull, and Zack sees her giving the bag of coins back to the archer. He helped the monk back up and apologized for the dirty trick. The monk, wincing in pain, said it's no big deal, and asked Zack if he saw a man in green robes running out of the tavern. Zack answered saying the only people he saw ran out were them and the archer. Everyone looks confused, asking how is that even possible, and the wizard responded saying he could have used a teleportation spell. Then the monk replied back saying monks don't usually cast spells though. The rogue commented saying he might not be a monk, or at least not anymore. Kimberly Hart is your typical rich girl. She came from a wealthy family and a long line of archers. Her parents noticed her daughter was quite skilled with a bow and gymnastics, so they enrolled her in the Pterodactyl Archery School of Angel's Grove so she can hone in on her skills. But Kimberly saw through what was really happening. Her parents were distracting her from their divorce. They didn't mention their divorce to her, but the writing was on the walls. She and the rest of their family knew what was really happening. She lets out all of her frustration during her training, eventually being the best archer this school has ever seen. Whenever Angel's Grove is being attacked, she's usually the first archer the guards call to protect their city. While doing some independent training in the wilderness, she found a man practicing his spin kicks. She was enamored by him and introduced herself. The man introduced himself as Tommy Oliver, and his name sounded familiar to Kimberly. Then she realized this was the missing man from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery. The man's face went from a dorky, innocent smile quickly to sheer, unimaginable pain as he grabbed his head. He said he had to go and ran off, and Kimberly tried to follow, but it looked like the man just disappeared. A few days passed, and Kimberly was at Ernie's Tavern watching the annual martial arts competition. She sees a monk from the Tyrannosaurus Monastery going up against a mysterious masked man in green robes. The announcer simply called him the Dragon, and the two started a brawl. The fighters were evenly matched, almost looked like the dragon was mirroring the monk's moves. Suddenly, the dragon did a spin kick, and this reminded Kimberly about the man she met in the woods. This couldn't be the same man, right? The monk was knocked unconscious, and Kimberly tried to follow the dragon out, but the crowd was too big. It looked like the dragon was walking out the back exit, but when Kimberly followed him out, he vanished again. She walked back in and was greeted by Bulk and Skull, the city's former bullies, now bumbling janitors. They asked if they could hire her to track down the people who stole from her. She agrees, just so they can quickly get away from her, and they point to the front door, saying they went that way. She ran out, running past a guard from the Mastodon Guild, and fired a warning shot at their feet, and ran for cover. She ran behind a building, hiding in the shadows. She peeks around a corner and sees the monk fighting the guard, and out of nowhere, she was tackled by a flying rogue and her wizard friend. Kimberly reaches for an arrow, but quickly finds out the rogue stole all of them, and was taunting her. The wizard asks why she was attacking them, and she answered by saying she was hired by Bulk and Skull. The rogue, in embarrassment, tosses a small bag of coins at Kimberly, but Kimberly throws the bag back at the rogue, saying she just wanted to look like she was doing her job. She really doesn't care what happens to the town's old bullies. Everyone introduced themselves to each other. Jason, the monk, Billy, the wizard, Trini, the rogue, Zack, the knight, and Kimberly, the archer. Jason catches everyone up to speed, and now they have a quest: find Tommy Oliver. But they will quickly be distracted by the return of the dark witch, Rita Repulsa. And there we have it, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as fantasy characters. And I really like how the art turned out for this video. And I knew this video was going to be long, so I decided to not do an intro for this, and just immediately start with the story. And I also really like how the story turned out. I tried to make it where all the lore kind of like connects to like one singular point where they met, which is of course a tavern, because, you know, because every D&D game starts in a tavern, right? That's the meme anyway. But yeah, I want to do something Power Rangers related, and I figured, well, why not start at the very beginning? But if I did that, then I really should be starting with Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger. But then I realized that's actually not really the beginning of it all. It should actually be Spider-Man, kind of, sort of. If you know the whole story behind that, and how Spider-Man basically created a Sentai, which created Power Rangers. And I guess also created Kamen Rider too. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and hopefully this video gets enough likes so I can do a part 2 and draw Tommy Oliver and continue this storyline. Or if you guys want to see any more Power Rangers related things that's not really fantasy related, like maybe turn Marvel characters into Power Rangers, DC characters into Power Rangers, turn Mighty Morphin Power Rangers into, I don't know, something else, let me know. It doesn't even have to be Mighty Morphin. I know the internet's kind of burned out on Mighty Morphin themed stuff now. But yeah, anyway, I think this intro's long enough, right? If you all enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! I'm trying to speed through this outro because the video's super long. Bye! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and I'm a big fan of Dungeons & Dragons. I started playing in the year 2020, you know, the year where everyone was on vacation, relaxing in their homes, and nothing bad ever happened. Excuse me. Is that blood? Anyway, in case you couldn't tell, I'm also a big fan of superheroes. I don't know if it's obvious or not. I do try to keep it subtle. So I figured for this video, I turned D&D monsters into superheroes and villains. So, with the intro out of the way, roll initiative! In a far-off galaxy lived a race of illithids, a hive-mind species who felt like they were superior beings. They would go to different planets infecting people with brain larvae, turning them into illithids. But an intergalactic war broke out, and all but one were slaughtered. This was a young Illithid, and instead of fighting, they ran and hid in a nebula, waiting for the bloodbath to end. They were the sole survivor of their race, and they felt great guilt. They had to make up for their cowardness, so they'll travel across space in their Nautilus ship, looking for a new home. And they found Earth. These Earthlings seemed quite primitive, at least compared to the Illithid, so they started their work in recreating the hive mind. At first, nobody knew what was happening. People all over the globe started disappearing. Some people have witnessed these alien abductions, but they were brushed off as lunatics spreading conspiracy theories. Or at least, that's what the government wanted people to think. The idea of an alien invasion could spark mass panic. So, they tried to keep the Illithid under wraps. But that was until an army of them swarmed the city of Wizard's Coast. Luckily, Wizard's Coast is heavily populated with heroes that can defend their city. The leader of this new Illithid army, now going by the Mind Flayer, wanted to take control of Earth, starting with this city and claim it as New Far Realm, and turn everyone into one of his own. But he was quickly thwarted by a party of heroes. They quickly wiped out the Illithid army. Most heroes have a strict no-kill policy, so they'll try to knock out the Illithids so they can try to cure them later. But the anti-heroes, who are oftentimes labeled as murder hobos by the press, were informed that there were no cures, so they did not hesitate to kill them on sight. Wizard's Coast, as the name implies, is a peculiar city. Most of the people here are magical, and because of this, some of them became heroes, and some used their magic for villainy. But when the city was overrun by Illithids, everyone joined the fight to protect their homes. The Illithids who survived the war would be put into stasis and stored in Area 51 for study. And for the Mind Flayer, he would be charged for his crimes, but he managed to escape Earth and started to plot his return.
Fear not for your future, for now you must sleep. In Sagatmo's cradle your body shall steep. Your flesh a fine banquet, a delicate food. Your gift to the lady shall nourish the brood. What birds from your leavings and grows in her nave shall feed from your ruins and fat from your grave.
This haunting hymn is usually sung by the brainwashed zombies created by the fungus queen herself, Celium Sagatmoy, a powerful villain who wants to spread rot and decay throughout the world. Celium was born in a small European village where she learned she had strange powers to grow and manipulate fungus and plants, and because of this, she was labeled as a demon and was ostracized along with her family. She and her parents moved to America to start a new life, living in the city of Wizard's Coast, and Celium's mother begged her to never use her abilities ever again. Growing up was tough for Celium. She felt out of place. Not only was she a foreigner, but she felt like a freak. She didn't want the same thing to happen to her and her parents to happen here too. So she kept her powers a secret. But the less she used her abilities, the more she felt the urge to use them. After school, she would walk to the park and make the plant life grow. This helped her some, but one day, someone caught her. There was an old man feeding the ducks, and he caught a glimpse of Celium making the mushrooms around a tree grow. Celium saw this man looking at her with fear in his eyes, and memories of her village exploded in her mind. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to be labeled as a demon anymore, but suddenly, two vines with pods at the end grew out of her back and shot out mysterious spores. She tried to stop them, but it was no use. Once the old man breathed in the spores, his eyes faded to all white. He turned around and walked directly into the pond and drowned himself. Celium had no idea what just happened as a vine sank back in her back. Did she just kill this man? No one was around to witness this, so she ran back home to try to hold back tears. The next day, a nursing home reported about a missing elderly man, and a newspaper showed a picture of him. It was the same man Celium killed, and a week later his body was found in a pond with fungus covering him. It was assumed that he walked into the body of water voluntarily, and no one ever found out the truth. Celium will keep using her powers in secret, but now she is extra cautious around people. Back at the park, she saw a decomposing cat. She felt sorry for it and would dig it a grave. As she went to pick it up, spores started to fly out of her hands into the cat, and it woke up. The cat was mostly a skeleton, but it was somehow alive, or rather, it was undead. It spoke in Celium's mind, saying it only feels pain, begging for death once again. So Celium grabbed a rock and put the zombified cat out of its misery. Maybe her village was right. Maybe she was a demon, After that, she would become a shut-in, refusing to leave her home. As she grew older, her need to use her powers were getting stronger. She needed to let out more spores. She tried to hold off these feelings, but suddenly spores started to fly out uncontrollably. Spores were flying around the apartment complex, flying into the air vents, and many people unknowingly breathed it in. Celium ran out of the building trying to run away from her problems, but she was being followed by a group of brainwashed people asking for her commands. Celium paused for a moment, thinking that if the universe wants to be a demon so badly, then fine, she will become one. In a quiet, almost defeated voice, she commanded them to spread the gospel, and thus the cult of the Fungus Queen was born. Don't let his size fool you. Even though Napoleon's Simver is 3 feet tall, he makes up for his lack of height in his immeasurable amounts of rage and resentment towards supervillains. His family were amongst the many casualties when an alien race known as Illithus swarmed the city of Wizard's Coast. He wasn't a religious man, but he was tired of dealing with the demon in the bottle and was willing to do anything to bring them back. He would even sell his soul. That thought was enough to have the devil himself appear right in front of Napoleon and offer him a deal. His undying soul for the resurrection of his family. A contract and pen materialized in the devil's hand, and Napoleon was in a drunken haze and thought he had nothing else to lose, so he signed the contract, and the devil thanked him and vanished in a puff of smoke. Napoleon wakes up the next morning, thinking the whole exchange was just a weird dream, but as he walks down the stairs to the kitchen, he sees his wife and daughter sitting at the table. He was ecstatic and ran in for a hug, but his wife would scream and grabs a frying pan, swinging it. She nor their daughter had any memories of Napoleon, and would see the reflection of the devil laughing maniacally in the toaster. Not only did they lose their memories, but when Napoleon walked into the kitchen, they started to cough up blood. Napoleon's wife and daughter would run out of the house, and this would be the last time he ever saw them. Napoleon is furious, and he wants to take his revenge out on the villains who took his family, so he joined a cult and studied and even mastering magic. He became the vigilante known as Devil's Due, and if you asked him, he would say he's doing this world a favor, but his brutal tactics caused the media to label him as a menace to society. Fun fact, this is actually based off my first D&D character, and the reason why I'm adding this into the video is because this cold weather is really getting to me, and I did create this character for one of Popcross Studios' subscriber submission videos. I figure, why not just add it here, because technically he is D&D related, but he's not a D&D monster, nor really is he like an official D&D character, but he is a character that's close to me because, like I said, he is the first D&D character that I made. I will be showing the art of the original Napoleon up on screen. And also, another fun fact, in case if you couldn't tell from the story, he is based off of a warlock, and his patron in the campaign that he was in is actually Sagetmoid, the previous character in this video. But I didn't really think of an organic way to incorporate her into his superhero, anti-hero story, so it's just the generic devil, which is kind of like a holdover from when I made this character for Popcross Studios' subscriber submission video. But yeah, anyway, I hope y'all like this character, and hope y'all like this video. Anyway, I guess that's it. So on to the next character, Owlbear. Owen Grizzly spent all night partying. Then he woke up with a massive hangover, and he was about to be late for his final exams. His roommate, on the other hand, just inherited a spellbook from his late grandfather, and as he was flipping through the pages, Owen asked if there was a spell that could help him with his test. Owen is studying to be a veterinarian, but he spent most of his time in college throwing parties instead of studying. His roommate flipped to a page that had a spell called Strength and Wisdom. Maybe this could help Owen power through his hangover, and absorb a huge amount of knowledge in mere seconds. His roommate read the incantation, and it seemed like nothing happened. Owen's phone started buzzing. It was his reminder that the test was about to start, so he rushed to the classroom just in the nick of time. After the exam, he went back to his dorm and asked his roommate if he said the spell wrong. He didn't, or at least he thinks he didn't. He was about to read the spell again, but Owen interrupted him, saying he doesn't want to double up on spells, even if it might have not worked the first time. So with that, his roommate closed the book and asked if he wanted any drinks. Then they went downtown and visited their favorite bar, the Dungeon Masters. This bar is very popular, oftentimes being visited by the local heroes of Wizard's Coast. You will hear some of the craziest stories being told in this bar, about heroes fighting villains and monsters. There are even rumors of a famous singer seducing dragons. But those can't possibly be real, right? Anyway, a few shots down and Owen was feeling funny. Not drunk funny, more so his muscles started to ache. He looked out the window and stared at the bright full moon, and noticed his vision was better. Not only that, but if he concentrates on a specific spot, he can magnify his vision and see things far away. Suddenly, his roommate tapped him on his shoulder, asking if he was alright, and Owen lost focus. Owen said he was fine and walked to the bathroom. He splashed water on his face, and as he went to turn off the faucet, the sink broke out the walls with him barely touching it. He suddenly hears a commotion in the bar. It sounded like robbers were holding the place up. Owen quickly opens the door, ripping it off its hinges, and he sees a couple of masked goons charging up spells, asking for people's money. He didn't realize it, but his body grew to the size of a grizzly bear, and without thinking, he charged in on one of the criminals, bouncing him off the walls. He stared at the other one, trying to intimidate him. The other criminal charged in, firing an eldritch blast, and Owen was using his arms to block it, and he grabbed the masked man and threw him out the bar. Everyone cheered, and his roommate said, "I think the spell worked." Owen was looking around, and then he finally looks down and says, "Holy crap, I'm huge." Everyone was thanking them as they were leaving the bar, and Owen asked his roommate if he knew when the spell would wear off, but he didn't have an answer for that. Owen woke up the next morning, and he was back to normal, and he aced his exam as well, and celebrated with another party. But as night rolled back around, his powers started to activate again. Turns out Owen would transform into this hulking form at night. He knew he has to use these powers for good, and it wouldn't hurt to be famous as well. So with help from his roommate, he fashioned a super suit, and with his super strength and super vision, he named himself Owlbear, and he quickly became a popular hero in Wizard's Coast. Alright, D&D monsters as superheroes and villains, and I really like the art for this video, and originally I was only going to have 3 characters for this video, but I wanted equal amounts of heroes and villains just to balance it out. So at the very last minute I added my own character, Napoleon. This version of Napoleon was originally made for Popcraft Studios subscriber submission video, and you can briefly see the art in the actual video. And also the reason why he's 3 feet tall is because in the actual game I made him into a gnome. Because I thought it would be fun to have like an angry gnome character. He was my first D&D character, and I was kind of like just making like a joke character in case if I didn't actually like the game, I can have fun with the character. But it turns out I really liked the game, and I also had a lot of fun with the character. And he's kind of like, when I first made him, he was more so kind of based off of Spawn. Because when I was making the character, I didn't really know what to do, because I never made a D&D character. So I just kind of like stole aspects of Spawn, because if you think about it, Spawn is technically a warlock superhero. So I just added in like Spawn characteristics into Napoleon. Hence the whole like making a deal with the devil, which in the game, we kind of retconned that into making a deal with Sagutmoy. Because I didn't know about D&D demons and devils and all the other stuff, gods and whatever else it's in the game. So my dungeon master suggested why not have his patron be Sagutmoy. And also another reason why it's Sagutmoy, because in the game, again, he's a joke character. We found some glowing mushrooms in a cave. And I just thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if Napoleon ate some of these magic mushrooms? Which turns out to be wild magic mushrooms. And that's kind of spawned the whole Sagutmoy thing, because Sagutmoy is the fungus queen of death and decay or something like that. Fungus demon queen, I guess, actually. But yeah, anyway, that's going to be the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And the next video is going to be a very special video. It's going to be the season finale of Comics with T Rav. And it's going to be the first episode in hopefully a series of videos titled Subscriber Suggestions Variety Video, or the SSVV for short. That's the official name for the series, the SSVV. So yeah, I already got the suggestions picked out for the video, but if you have any more suggestions you want to leave me, you know what to do, just put them in the comments, and I'll just add it to a list of other suggestions I have. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, you know what to do by now. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you all in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here, and welcome to the season finale of Comics with T Rav. And also, welcome to the very first episode of what might end up being a series, the Subscriber Suggestions Variety Video, or the SSVV, or the SSVV for short. I'm very proud to make this. Y'all been leaving me a ton of suggestions, and I honestly don't know what might do well in the YouTube algorithm, what might not. There's some things that I don't have any knowledge of, and I had to do some research to actually make a good video. So this is kind of like going to be like a backdoor pilot for what might end up being future series, while at the same time being its own series as well. Hopefully that makes sense. This is also going to be a thank you video for everyone who left their support and also their suggestions as well, just because I want to show my gratitude for y'all sticking around this channel, and yeah, hopefully y'all will enjoy this video. But yeah, every suggestion I get, I put them all into a list. So I have 8 suggestions. I'm going to be splitting this episode into 2 parts, so stay tuned for part 2 coming hopefully next week if I plan this all out correctly. But yeah, anyway, hope y'all enjoyed the very first episode of the subscriber suggestion variety video for this. And I just want to say too, thank you all for your support. Thank you for leaving likes and comments on my videos. This channel blew up faster than I thought it would, and hopefully we can get more people to watch this channel, and hopefully more suggestions and maybe even submissions for future videos. Who knows? I have no idea where this series is going to go. But yeah, just thank you so much for your support. Anyway, I think I rambled long enough. On to the video.
The multiverse is vast, and every decision you make in one universe can result in the birth of another. Some universes are born as a result of a branching timeline, while others are caused by an amalgam event, an event where multiple timelines collide into each other, creating a new fused universe. My name is Preacher, and join me as I guide you to the many realities of the multiverse. We will start this tour in universe FNHH-26, an amalgam universe where universe FNAF-14 collided with universe HH-19. This universe's events are similar to its parent universe of FNAF-14, where a serial killer named William Afton opened a restaurant chain as a cover-up for his dark hobby. When he died, instead of his soul inhabiting a golden rabbit animatronic, it was instead damned to the fiery pits of hell. After witnessing the untimely death of his children, William Afton became paranoid about his own mortality. He lost grip of right and wrong, and went on a murder spree targeting young children. In the mid-70s, he and his business partner Henry Emily created Fazbear Entertainment and opened a restaurant called Fredbear's Family Diner. Henry created special spring-locked suits of colorful mascot characters that can be worn either by an animatronic or a person. But these suits are incredibly dangerous. If not fastened properly, the wearer of the suits can sustain critical injuries that can result in the loss of life. It was the year 1983, and Henry's daughter, Charlotte, went missing. The last time he saw her, she was outside the restaurant waiting for her father to finish his shift. After several weeks, Charlotte is presumed dead, and her body was never discovered. Of course, we all know what really happened. William Afton took this opportunity to kill her. He believed that souls of children can keep him immortal, and poor Charlotte was his first victim. He would continue this spree of his, mostly targeting children, but he would occasionally kill adults who would get too close to solving the case. And the soul of one of these adults went to hell. He was furious that not only William killed him, but he also killed innocent children as well. Hell wasn't what he pictured though. Instead of constant torture, it was basically like life on Earth, except a bit more risque, with a lot more musical numbers. He settled in his new life, living in an apartment watching TV, then suddenly a commercial aired promoting a hitman company called IMP, or the Immediate Murder Professionals, run by imps and their hellhound. This person immediately picked up the phone and set up an appointment. He wanted William Afton dead. Blitz and his team, Moxie and Millie, opened a portal to Earth. The plan is simple: infiltrate the diner and shoot William in the head and call it a day's work. But alas, nothing is ever that simple. Blitz walked in disguised as a lost kid, looking for his parents, while Moxie was in the parking lot pointing his sniper rifle towards William, who was wearing his Springtrap bunny suit, and Millie was on the fence in case if something goes wrong. Blitz asked William if he saw his parents, and William was confused as to why this child had horns and a tail. But he went along with the bit. He noticed a faint light coming from the bushes next to the parking lot. Then he told the lost child to follow him to his office, where he had a phone he could use to call his parents. Blitz went along, and while walking, William suddenly picked up a knife from the kitchen and locked the office door behind him, asking the obvious demon to take off the silly disguise. Blitz asked what gave him away, then suddenly Millie drops out the fence wielding a combat knife. Moxie ran inside and tried to kick the door down, but it didn't budge. He would try several more times, then Millie asked him to shoot the lock, which he did, and then he kicked it open. They had William surrounded, but William sucker punched Blitz across the face and throws the knife at Moxie and runs off. Millie jumps on his back, stabbing through the tough hide of the Springtrap suit, causing some of the locks to penetrate William's skin. William ran into the kitchen and turned on the oven and threw Millie inside, blocking the door with a chair, and tried to run for the front exit, but Moxie was there pointing a gun at William and started firing. William was surprisingly nimble in his bulky suit and grabbed some pizza trays to shield himself from the barrage of bullets. Millie, now on fire, breaks free from the oven and tackles William again, unknowingly spreading fire all over this surprisingly flammable restaurant. With the building ablaze, Blitz walked towards William, saying, "Any last words?" William spits blood in Blitz's face, then says, "I always come back." And with that, a loud shot can be heard. The team, now exhausted, opened a portal back to hell and went back to their homes. Because of his many sins, William's soul is now in hell, where he would open a restaurant called Hellbear's Pizzeria. He heard of this new hotel being built by Lucifer's daughter that is meant to rehabilitate sinners, but William had no interest in being redeemed. He meant what he said to Blitz: he always comes back. And he remembers seeing a strange book that Blitz was carrying, and right before he died, he saw them exiting through a portal back to hell. This book is his ticket back to Earth. We will continue our tour in a similar universe. Universe DC-HH-26, an amalgam universe of DC-52-35 and HH-19. In this world, the Waynes are a famous rich family. The patriarch Thomas is the CEO of Wayne Tech. Wayne Tech develops high-grade weaponry for the US military, but little did the Gothamites know, Wayne Tech is also funded by the Falcone crime family. Thomas and Carmine Falcone go way back. Thomas was originally a weapons dealer for Carmine, and he came up with the idea of selling the weapons he made to the US government at an extremely high markup. His famous weapons are a cape that when charged with static can stiffen into a wingsuit, a sonar boomerang, flexible bulletproof armor, and, oddly enough, a shark repellent. Thanks for looking up for Thomas. This business venture made him the richest man in Gotham. But he didn't know that Carmine was also selling the weapons to America's enemies. Thomas didn't like this idea, but he let it slide because it was making more money than he could possibly dream of. But when his wife, Martha, got pregnant, Thomas was regretting being close to the Falcones. He had to think what was best for the baby. He waited 10 years after the birth of his son, Bruce, to finally cut all ties to Carmine, a decision that haunts the Waynes to this day. On Bruce's 10th birthday, Thomas and Martha took him to the movies, and when they left, they were ambushed by one of Carmine's hitmen, Joe Chill. It was there, in a dark alley, 2 loud gunshots can be heard. This isn't where Thomas' story ends, however. For the sins he committed, his soul was damned to hell, and in the form of a red-eyed bat demon. As for Martha, she was unaware of Thomas' ties to one of Gotham's many mafias, and her soul was sent to heaven. Thomas felt like this new life of his was well deserved. But on every dark night, he would stare up in the skies, wishing he could see Martha again, and apologize for every wrong deed he's done. While walking through hell, he sees a hotel. He recognizes it from the ads on the radio, the Has-Been Hotel, a place for sinners to repent and rehabilitate themselves in hope to be redeemed and ascend to heaven. But no one was really sure if such a thing could be possible, until Sir Pentious was killed during the war with heaven, and his sacrifice was enough to redeem his soul. Thomas decided, what the hell, and gave this hotel a shot. He feels like he can't be redeemed, but he tries to follow Charlie's teachings and become the best version of himself he can be. Afraid of another war, he had special guns crafted by Carmilla that could be used to slay angels, but he had the guns custom made to be the same model used by Joe Chill, as a constant reminder of his sins, so he won't forget why he is in hell in the first place. He does everything Charlie tells him to do, but he feels no closer to redemption. But he is reminded that redeeming one's soul starts with a sorry. How can he apologize to Martha if he can't be with her? Maybe redemption is not cut out for Thomas, so he left the hotel. He still has the angel-killing guns Carmilla gave him, which can also kill demons. So, to let out his frustrations, he hunts down the worst sinners he can find and kills them permanently. If killing the worst scum of hell can't redeem him, then all hopes are lost. That was until he saw an imp family walking down the street, and their child reminds him of Bruce. He stopped the bloodshed and gave the hotel another shot. He has a long road ahead of him, but it will all be worth it to be with his wife once more. We will visit another amalgam universe, Universe MC-MHA-26, a universe that spawned from Universe MC-616-39 and Universe MHA-14. In this world, 80% of Earth's population are born with powers they call quirks. Because of this, many people grow up becoming superheroes. Thus, schools were made to train the future generations on how to use their quirks to stop villains. The top school in Japan is UA, and almost everyone who wants to be a hero tries to join, but some don't end up making the cut. Yamashiro Yoshi was lucky enough to join such an elite school. He was born with the quirk Spider, and can do practically anything a spider can do. He can stick to any surfaces, his body is covered in microscopic sensitive hairs that alert him to danger, he has the proportional strength of a spider, and he can spit non-lethal venom that cause temporary paralysis. In his first year, he was in the support class. He wanted to be in the hero class, but they were all booked. Classic Yamashiro luck, he thought. While in the support class, he made special gauntlets that contain web fluids that allow him to shoot webs from his wrists, but he has to constantly refuel them when they run out. Yoshi grew up in a poor family. He never knew his parents. Instead, he was raised by his aunt and uncle. Yoshi was a very intelligent kid for his age, and because of this, he was enrolled in UA a year early. Summer vacation rolled around, and Yoshi spent his vacation working odd jobs to help his aunt and uncle. He was a pizza delivery boy and a freelance photographer. They didn't pay well, but his luck might have turned around when he saw a flyer advertising a quirk wrestling tournament. He doesn't have his license yet, so he can't legally use his powers outside school, so he made a wrestling persona, the Human Spider, and joined the tournament. His first opponent was Crusher Hogan, a man with a strength-boosting quirk. Yoshi was sweeping around the ring, dodging Hogan's attacks, but he was quickly grabbed by the brute. Hogan started to squeeze Yoshi with all of his might, but with Yoshi's spider strength, he managed to use his legs as leverage, pushing against Hogan's body, escaping his grasp. Yoshi is getting exhausted, but he has to win the prize money. Hogan started to run towards Yoshi, and Yoshi leaps high into the air. Yoshi pulls up his mask and spits venom at Hogan, paralyzing him. As he lands back on the mat, he uses the rope around the arena to slingshot himself at Hogan, knocking him over, pinning him. Yoshi won the first round. The second round came, and his next opponent was a man who goes by Bonesaw. This was a cage match, and it was timed as well, with 3 minutes on the clock. Bonesaw tried to rush Yoshi, but Yoshi jumps up, grabbing the bars of the cage. He spits his venom at Bonesaw, but quickly learns that he was immune to it. Bonesaw hits the bars, and Yoshi loses his grip, falling on the mat. Bonesaw was about to stomp his boot onto Yoshi's head, but with his spider sense kicking in, he backflips away. There wasn't really much Yoshi could do in this fight, so he used his brute force to fight Bonesaw. He usually pulls his punches as to not seriously hurt people, but he decided to use 10% of his strength and starts fighting back. It seems to be working, so he amps up to 20%, then 30%, and with the final blow, Yoshi knocks out Bonesaw. He will go through waves upon waves, one with the person who has a scorpion quirk and one with the rhino quirk. He fought his way to the top and won the prize, but he has to reveal who he was in order to receive the money. And he obviously couldn't do that, so he returned home empty-handed. As he made back to his house, there were police, heroes, and paramedics there. There was a home invasion, and his uncle was murdered. Yoshi could have been there to protect his family, but instead he was participating in a tournament, and now his uncle is gone. It was there Yoshi learned that with great powers, there must also come great responsibilities. So when the next school year rolled back around, Yoshi enrolled in the hero course so he can become Japan's #1 hero and protect those who can't protect themselves. While in the hero course, he made friends with a kid who had a fire quirk, Arashi Jonochi, the younger brother to the famous hero Arashi Su, the fantastic invisible woman. But Yoshi felt more comfortable training alone. He also has a habit of talking to himself out loud. It was time to pick a name, and seeing that he can't use his human spider name because that will reveal that he was using his powers illegally, he decided to go with something else, the stupendous web-swinging Spider-Man. Now onto Universe SPMC-25. This world is stuck in time, where the Victorian Age never went away. Heroes like the Avengers formed to stop the villainous group known as Hydra, but there seems to be an anomaly. The life of a young boy seems to be forgotten by the residents of this world. Bailey Bartholomew Briggs, or Bart, was the apprentice to the wall-crawling vigilante, Spider-Man, but an experiment performed by Hydra caused the world to forget his existence. Bart grew up in an orphanage with other kids his age. No one was being adopted, but some of the kids wind up missing. Turns out, the person who runs his orphanage was a mad scientist who worked at Oscorp, Melodia Stillwell, or as the other kids call her, Madam Monstrosity, on account that she experiments on kids, grafting animal DNA onto them, turning them into monsters. Bart found out about this when it was his turn to be experimented on. After she was fired from Oscorp, Melodia took her research with her to continue her experiments in secret. One of her research was using radioactive spider DNA to cure diseases. She injected Bart with the spider DNA and watched as his body mutated into a man-spider hybrid. Bart grew an extra set of eyes and sharp fangs. Other than that, he seemed to survive the mutation, and was stored in Melodia's lab for future studies. Bart is devastated by his new monstrous appearance, until he meets a friend of his, Ellie. In order to cheer Bart up, Ellie starts cracking jokes about Melodia's experiments. Then Bart chimed in with one that his mother told him. What would you get if you crossed an elephant with a rhino? Hell if I know. Bart and Ellie started laughing. Then Melodia walked in, saying, That's not a bad idea. Crossing two animal species. She ordered her mutated animal-human hybrid to grab Ellie and create her own LFINO. Bart begged her to stop, saying they were only joking, but it was too late. She already made her decision, and now Bart had lost his friend. He managed to escape Melodia's lab and is living in the streets of New York. Bart learned how to change back to normal, but he still needs to practice on controlling his new monstrous form. Then suddenly, he was back to be attacked by the notorious serial killer, the Ripper of New York, Cletus Cassidy. That was until a masked man jumped in front of Bart, protecting him. This man is labeled by the press as a menace, but to Bart, he was his favorite Avenger, Spider-Man. Spider-Man tells Bart to run, but Bart starts to change into his man-spider form and joins Spider-Man in a fight. Together, they quickly beat Cletus and notify the authorities. Spider-Man congratulates Bart on the team-up, and Bart asks why he wasn't scared of him. Spider-Man saw his fair share of monsters, but he knew Bart wasn't one of them deep down. Spider-Man tells Bart to go back to his family. Then Bart tilts his head down and says he has no one to go back to. Spider-Man puts his hand on Bart's shoulder and kneels down to his level and says, How about you stick with me then? This was, of course, before the universe forgot about him. He will find Spider-Man again and tell him that he was his protege. But Spider-Man doesn't believe him, thinking he would never put a 10-year-old in danger, and brings Bart to a homeless shelter. Bart will continue to be the hero Spider-Boy, but because of his monstrous looks, he'll have a hard time gaining the trust of the civilians.
Alright, and there we have it. And I really like how the art turned out for this video. The main challenge was to try to mimic other people's art styles. And I feel like with the Has-Been Hotel one, / Hell of a Boss, the art style is very simple. It actually kind of reminds me sort of the Jonan Vasquez, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac / Invader Sim art style, kind of, sort of. That early 2000s cartoon style. But with the Has-Been Hotel Batman drawing I did, it looks more like Bruce Timm's art style than Fizzy Pop's, but I still like how the art turned out for them. So the original suggestion for the Springtrap design was the person wanted Springtrap in Has-Been Hotel. I decided to, story-wise, go more for the Hell of a Boss. It takes place in the same universe, I'm sure. I think it's called the Holi-Force, because the Has-Been Hotel is focused more on redemption, which for William Afton, I personally don't really see how you can redeem a serial killer who goes after children. But then again, I'm not God, and I don't claim to be God, so yeah. I mean, you could probably write a story of redeeming such character, but I'm not the type of person who could do justice to that kind of story. And as for the Batman one, I decided to go with the Thomas Wayne version of Batman because, well, in almost every iteration of Batman stories, his parents are the one that gets killed. So it makes sense for Tom's soul to be sent to hell because he dies. And in some stories, the Waynes are part of like the Gotham Mafia storyline with Carmine Falcone or Falcone, or however you pronounce his name. So I figure redemption makes more sense for Thomas Wayne than it does William Afton. Also, the red and black just suits the whole demon aesthetic. And as for Spider-Man in the My Hero Academia, I want to throw some nods to the Toei Spider-Man, so I gave him like the Toei Spider-Man web shooters, and I also gave him last name, if you can call it the last name, because it comes before the first name in Japan. I think, at least that's how I wrote it as, because I think that's how you do it. I think it's the family name than the given name. But anyway, So Spider-Man, I gave him the name Yamashiro Yoshi. One, because I wanted to keep the alliteration, like, Peter Parker, Miles Morales. It just made sense. And also, the Yamashiro part came from Takuya Yamashiro, I think that's his name, in the Toei Spider-Man series. Because they both take place in Japan. My Hero Academia and Toei Spider-Man, they both take place in Japan. And I suck at coming up with names, so I just figured, why not just throw in some Japanese Spider-Man references with this design? And the Steampunk Spider-Boy design, it's actually just my art style. I wish I gave him gadgets, like how I did with the other Steampunk Marvel designs I did in a previous video. I just couldn't really figure out what to give him, other than another grappling hook, web shooter thing like I gave the Spider-Man design. I haven't really read that much Spider-Boy, and as you can tell by the storyline, the story is very heavily referencing the first issue of Spider-Boy that goes over his origin. I just threw some extra stuff, like I gave him the name Bart because I just want to make it different enough but similar as well. And just added some few extra stuff, like he fought the Ripper of New York, Cletus Cassidy. I really like that name. It might be a bit too edgy, but then again, Carnage is a very edgy character, so it just makes sense, right? But yeah, overall, I really like how the art turned out for this. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for part 2, which should hopefully come next week. So, that's it. See ya! How's it going, everyone? T Rav here. In case you haven't seen part 1 of this video, link is in the description. It's also on the channel page right before this video. But anyway, last video, I introduced a new narrator called The Breacher, where he's like an interdimensional, weird alien watcher type person thing. And he basically is giving y'all a tour of the multiverse. In that last video, we did Springtrap and Hell of a Boss. We did Batman, the Thomas Wayne version of Batman, in Has-Been Hotel, Spider-Man in My Hero Academia, and Spider-Boy in the Steampunk universe. So, without further ado, let's start this video. Hope y'all enjoy, and if you do, you know what to do, like, comment, subscribe. Anyway, on to the time-lapse.
We will now visit Earth, MSMHAV-26, the home of the D&D Heroes. It all started with a loud, harmonious bang, with shockwaves engulfing the city of Blue Bubble. No one knew how this explosion happened, but they gave it a name, the Big Clangor. Many people of Blue Bubble were given extraordinary powers from the shockwaves, and the non-powered citizens would label them as monsters. People feared them, not knowing how they would use their newfound abilities. And some newly created monsters will embrace this label as they use their powers for villainy. But some demonstrated that not all monsters are bad, and they became the heroes of Blue Bubble. This individual, on the other hand, is not considered a hero nor a villain, for he irritates them both. His name is Henry Hendrix Hyde, or as he is most commonly known as online, yeah, named after his signature laugh he does in his videos, where he pulls elaborate pranks on both heroes and villains. Yeah has the powers to contort and bend his body like a ragdoll. And like many other superpowered people in Blue Bubble, he can also produce music from thin air. For him, his music sounds like a pipe organ, which he uses to amplify dramatic moments in his videos, often doing a dance to go along with it. He will gain a mass following online, but because he pulled pranks on supervillains, he would have to be extra cautious about concealing his identity. So Henry created a very sloppily put together Harlequin suit with a lot of noticeable stitching and seams. This wasn't enough, however, for when he tried to pull a prank on the villain named T-Rox, a hulking figure who can control rocks and crystals, his identity was revealed. While fighting the space hero Nebula, T-Rox sees cameras everywhere, and then he hears a noxious sniggering coming from a parking garage. T-Rox grabs one of the cameras and creates a pillar from the ground under him and scales up to the second floor of the parking garage and spots yeah. Henry sees he's been spotted and starts running for his life until a rock wall appears right in front of him. T-Rox forms a stone hand from the ground and grabs yeah and points a camera in his face and unmasks him live in front of his audience. Nebulop rushed in attacking T-Rox, giving Henry enough time to escape. He contorts his body enough to squeeze out from the stone hand, and he runs away. Yeha's identity is now public knowledge, but that won't stop Henry from making his content. If anything, it made it easier for him to accept sponsors to help fund his future streams. He would eventually become a mentor to an up-and-coming prankster, Hula, but he is extra careful to keep her safe so she won't have her identity revealed like his. So whenever the pranks go south, he'll always jump in to protect her. In Universe MKMR-26, a universe that spawned from universes MK-92 and MR-24, lived Johnny Wilson. He had it all: fame, fortune, and adoring fans. But after he was diagnosed with cancer, all of that suddenly meant nothing to him. He had a successful movie franchise called Ninja Mime, the Merc with No Mouth, which led to his stardom, and he used that money to fund a passion project of his, a documentary where he would travel across the world partaking in martial arts tournaments. But he ignorantly stumbled across an ancient war that spanned across dimensions called
Mortal Rivals!
Joined with a ragtag team, Jubilation King, Cum LeBeau, Eric Raiden, Natasha Blade, Jax Wilson, and Kwai Summers. This group will be the defenders of Earthrealm, fighting against the deadly sorcerers and cyborgs from Outworld. These factions gathered at a temple and started preparing for their fights. Johnny directed the cameraman to pan over to Natasha as she was stretching, and he walked up to her and started to gloat how he parties with Ryan Reynolds. Suddenly, Natasha swept Johnny's legs, tripping him to the ground and pointing a stun stick at him, threatening him. But they were quickly broken up by Eric, saying he gathered them here to defend their realm, not kill or flirt with each other. A loud gong can be heard, with Eric saying, "It's time for combat." Johnny chimed in with,
Did anyone else hear him say combat with a K?
They walked out and see the other team. Johnny is flabbergasted by the sight of literal monsters as their opponents. Sabakan picks two fighters, Johnny Wilson of Earthrealm and Zhang Sinister of Outworld. It's time for them to test their might, and with a loud booming voice, Sabakan says, "Round 1, fight!" Zhang Sinister is a master of magic and mutation, so he starts off by hovering in the air, firing magical projectiles at Johnny. But he quickly dodges out of the way and unleashes a barrage of punches and kicks towards Sinister.
You should know, the ladies and fellows constantly brag about my magic fingers.
And he fires green magic at Zhang Sinister, and with a wink towards the camera, he forms a green glowing katana construct and starts slicing and stabbing his opponent. Zhang Sinister collapses. With another boom of his voice, Sabakan says, "Round 2, fight!" Zhang Sinister gets up, and with a strange, cocky tone in his voice, he says,
I can tell you're sick. How about we even the playing field?
he uses his telepathy to grab Johnny, lifting him in the air and bringing him closer.
How about I give you a mutation that can cure you of your cancer?
And with that, Sinister places his hand on Johnny's chest. Johnny yells in intense pain. Tumors started to grow throughout his whole body. His hair began to fall out, and his flesh started to peel. This new healing factor of his seems to be making his cancer worse, but at the same time, it is actively killing any new cancerous cells that grow back.
An unforeseen side effect, but at least it will humble you.
After saying that, Sinister impales his hand through Johnny's chest and throwing him to the ground. Now it's the tiebreaker.
Round 3, fight!
Johnny's wound began to heal, and he gets up and sees his reflection in the pool of his own blood. He is furious and summons his green katana again and starts swinging. No jokes, no quips, no words. He gets a few good swipes at Sinister, but he gets pushed back by Shang's telepathy. Johnny looks at the cameraman and gives him a thumbs up, and out of nowhere, off camera, he pulls out what can only be described as a health bar and starts hitting Sinister with it over and over again. His teammates were confused, asking where did he get that prop from? Then Johnny yelled,
Cup check!
and splits his legs and punches Sinister in his crotch. Sinister kneels down to the ground, and Johnny starts to celebrate. As Johnny was waving to his teammates, Sabakan yelled, "Finish him!" Johnny looks at Sabakan and asks,
Finish him? You want me to kill him?
Johnny gets cut off as his opponent Zhang Sinister decapitates Johnny, kicks his body to the ground, displaying Johnny's now severed head to Sabakan. But oddly enough, Johnny is not dead. His head is still alive and bites Sinister's stomach. Sinister drops Johnny's head, saying,
Seems like your healing factor is more powerful than I thought. Oh well, you can no longer fight in this condition. So, I still win.
and with that, 1 point goes towards Outworld. Continuing our tour to Universe MCHAV-25, in a small mining town in Sweden named Mojankia, lived twin brothers, Stephen and Brian Notch. The sons of the scientist Professor Marcus Notch, the man who accidentally created superpowered people by opening an unstable portal to a cube dimension. The brothers grew up in a world of heroes and villains, and they loved it, seeing epic fights unfold knowing that the heroes will always save the day. When the boys grew older, they both got jobs working in the mines, joking that they always yearned for the mines when they were kids. One day, Moyegia was attacked by a villain named the End Dragoness, a powerful fiend from the End Dimension. Her goal was to spread chaos and claim this world as her own. The heroes of Moyegia tried to step in to stop her, but she was just too strong. Steven and Brian couldn't stand idly by watching the End Dragoness wreak havoc across their small town. So they quickly crafted suits made of scrap iron and leather and equipped TNT, crossbows, fireworks, and their diamond-tipped pickaxes and joined the fight. They may not have any powers, but they both could hold their own in a fight. Both brothers were incredibly strong, and rumors started to spread amongst their co-workers that they were able to punch trees down with their bare hands. The brothers were lobbing TNT and fireworks at the villain, and they got her attention. And the Dragoness fired a purple fireball at the brothers, but they were quickly grabbed and brought to safety by Dennis Lindquist, the hero known as the Wolf. The Wolf demanded to know what they were doing, telling them that non-powered people are no match against someone so powerful, but they refused to listen, so the Wolf reluctantly lets them join their team. The brothers joined this newly formed hero group, along with Sniffer, the Goat, Rapid, and Axolotl. Each hero has extraordinary powers that can help them take down the villain. Using super strength, Sniffer throws the Goat at End Dragoness while she was distracted by Rapid and her immense speed. The Goat uses his horns and impale End Dragoness, breaking them off and escaping her grasp. Now she is furious and throws another purple fireball, but it was blocked by Axolotl. Axolotl looks badly hurt, but they reassure the team that they are fine and can quickly heal from this. And the Dragoness floats down, giving her villain monologue, while out of nowhere, Steven and Brian jumped in and plunged their pickaxes in End Dragoness' back. Then Brian plants a stick of dynamite on her and tells everyone to run. End Dragoness grabs Brian and was about to use her purple flames to finish him, then Brian uttered the word, kaboom. And the dynamite, now lit by the purple flames, exploded. End Dragoness is exhausted and says,
"We will meet again, and I will be your end,"
and flies back through her portal. The day has been saved, but Brian sacrificed himself to protect the city. Steven and the other heroes had a funeral for all those who lost their lives in this villain attack, and written on Brian's tombstone was, "You are a hero, Brian." Many years passed, and Steven heard rumors about the old mines being haunted. People were disappearing. Mysterious dark tunnels were being dug, with an occasional red torch being placed, and whoever goes near the old mines will start to experience strange hallucinations and intense vertigo. Steven has to investigate these strange claims. These were the mines where he and Brian worked at for many years. When he approached the entrance, he heard faint whispers. Couldn't make out what they were saying, so he went inside. The whispers were getting louder, and he felt like he was being watched, and would on occasion see glowing white dots in his peripheral vision. But they would quickly disappear when he tried to look at them. The deeper he gets, the more he can make out the whispers. They were mumbling something about the entity called White Eyes. Steven heard about this on one of his heroic adventures, where he stopped a cult from mass ritualistic sacrifice. White Eyes is an eldritch god of life and death, but she was never proven to be real. Suddenly, the cave was being filled with white fog, and Steven felt a hand grasping the back of his neck. Right behind him, he hears a familiar voice. "Powers are a mistake. Every week, there's a story of people losing their lives because of a random villain, and every outcome is the same. People die, people mourn, and people continue to fight and abuse their powers and create more death. It is a vicious cycle. One I will end." He turns Steven around so he can see his face. "All thanks to White Eyes." Steven is mortified. The sight of his own brother, who looks no older than the day he died, right in front of him.
Brian?
Steven mumbled under his breath. Brian was just standing there, choking Steven as white fog began to fill the room more. The more Steven looked into Brian's scarred-up, glowing white eyes, the more the room began to spin, and his vision began to go dark. Steven wakes up just outside the entrance of the mine, questioning if that was even real. He travels back to Brian's grave and sees the word hero was scratched out, and on the back the phrase, "No more powers," carved into the stone. Quietly, Steven says,
You were a hero, Brian.
We will conclude this tour with Universe PRMA-26, a world where a group of teenagers with attitude defend their city from the gang known as the Pandora Mafia.
Whoa, I knew I should have taken a left turn at Albuquerque.
I'm sorry? Who are you?
Are you a cop?
No, I am Breacher. My kind are called Forgers of Existence. I'll ask again. Who are you?
You know if you're a cop, you legally have to tell me.
That is a lie in many realities. I'll ask one more time. State your name and how you got here.
Well, you see, people not knowing who I am is kind of my shtick. As for how I got here, I don't know. See, I was working on a new mech armor for a client, and out of nowhere, portals were popping up all over my world. Everything was getting sucked off.
Let's use more appropriate language, please.
Fine, buzzkill. Anyway, portals were sucking up everything in my world. My trailer got eaten up by one of them portal things with me in it. And next thing I knew, I became a nomadic arms dealer hopping through the multiverse willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly? So you don't control the portals?
Nope. At least I reckon I don't.
You still have yet given me your name.
Well, if you're an arms dealer like me, it's best that less people know who you are. Especially if you sell high-grade weapons and armor to people. I tell you what, the government don't take too kindly to people selling their next-door neighbors a loaded tank, no matter what dimension you're in. So I get a nickname Dealer. Say, buddy, your face looks all puzzled there. Yeah, at least I think that's her face.
My kind created what is now known as the Multiverse. I know everything in every reality. Yet, your name escapes me. I never saw you before in my infinite lifespan.
I wouldn't worry about it too much, friendo. The more you worry, the more you age. Although, I guess y'all don't have to worry about that much, huh? Hey, wait a minute. Is that the Dragon Sword mech armor I built?
It is a dragon-themed mechanized suit of armor. I guess you built it?
Darn tootin' I did. I recognize my handiwork anywhere.
You care to tell the story then?
For real? Shoot, here goes. So, like I said, every now and then a random portal opens up and sucks me and my trailer in with it. I ended up in basically California, but sometimes there's random Japanese words sprinkled around, and sometimes it looks like New Zealand. The town I ended up with, and I kid you not, Angel Grove. Now, I was a big Power Rangers fan growing up. It is what sparked my enthusiasm for designing mech armors in the first place. Now, I didn't know when my next leap was going to be. That's what I call getting sucked off.
Language.
Whatever. Anyway, I needed to make some doubloons. And of course, currency was never consistent in many universes, so I set up shop. A group of teenagers who looked like they stepped right off the 90s sitcom Saved by the Bell walked up to me and commissioned me to make them 5 mech suits based off of prehistoric animals. They paid me in solid gold coins with said animals stamped onto them. I guess that's their money here. So I got to work. These suits enhance the wearer's strength and agility. And they all got special weapons and powers to go along with, but I'll say that for another time. If the viewers want, of course.
Oh, so you can see the Fuhrers as well.
Nope, but I figured you had to be talking to someone. Either that or y'all's crazy. Anyway, the scary mafioso lady with a shrill, whiny voice, loud enough to give anyone a headache, commissioned me to make her son a mech armor. Her son is a school star martial artist, Tommy Oliver. I know that because she wouldn't stop boasting about his achievements. I get it, you're the mother of the year, but your voice is so annoying.
And yours isn't?
Oh, you got jokes, Mr. or Mrs. or whatever y'alls are. Echoey voice guy thing. You know this comeback would be a lot better if I knew what exactly I was talking to. Anyway, a paycheck is a paycheck no matter who pays you, so I accepted her offer. Her son loves the Godzilla movies, and of course with this being a Power Rangers adjacent world, I got to work building the Dragon Sword as a mech armor. And I don't have to worry about copyrights either, because Power Rangers don't exist in this reality. This suit had all the bells and whistles. Literally. I mean, I had to incorporate the Dragon Dagger somehow. It also fires lasers from the fingertips. I wanted to go with rockets like in the original show, but you know how hard it is to fit rockets in your fingers? I also gave it a drill stab because the original Dragon Sword had a drill tail. It can also sustain high water pressures, and is equipped with enough oxygen for Tommy to aura farm when he rises out from the deep. Anyway, this repulsive lady loved the suit and gave it to her son to stop those pesky power brats. Her words, not mine. But for some reason, Tommy ended up betraying her and joined the mighty mechanized Power Rangers. I guess his mom figured out he would betray her at some point, so he had her top scientist Finster to hack in some kind of firewall, preventing him from ever using it to stop her and the Bedora Mafia. So Tommy came back to me and commissioned a new suit, this time themed after a white tiger. But like I said, that's a story for another time. Anyway, that's the story of how I broke interdimensional copyright law. Oh, I guess this is my cue to leave. It was nice meeting you, Breacher.
You were an interesting guest, I'll say, but it was still a pleasure, even though your existence perplexes me.
I'm sure you can figure it out, and if not, maybe it's a mystery best left unsolved. Or hey, maybe the viewers at home can figure it out. Who knows? Anyway, see you again. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where this will lead me next time.
Anyway, that concludes our tour of the multiverse, and I hope you all enjoyed it, for there will be more to come in the future. I have been Breacher, and I'll be very appreciative to talk to you all again soon.
Alright, and there we have it. And I really like how the art for this video turned out. So part 1, most of the art was done in a different art style, ones that I'm not really too familiar drawing in. So with this one, it's all my art style, and I felt more comfortable drawing it, and therefore I actually like these pieces more than the last one. I honestly don't have any notes. I think I did a really good job, and hopefully y'all agree. Hopefully y'all like the new narrators I introduced for this video, Breacher and the Dealer. And hopefully we can see them more again sometime soon, maybe. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to keep this outro short. Actually, after this episode, I have 2 more videos planned. One of them is going to be a compilation video of every episode in Season 1, and the other one is going to be a tier list of every single art I've done throughout Season 1. So yes, stay tuned for those videos, and after that I'm going to take a bit of a hiatus. I'm going to work on some videos in the background. I might start doing some more videos on my gaming channel, so if you want to check that out, link is always in the description. It's also on the channel page as well. And other than that, I'm just going to be taking a very well-needed break. I might do some easy videos during the hiatus, like maybe some tier lists of different Spider-Man designs or different Batman designs or whatever I can come up with. But yeah, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, I'll talk to you all in the next video. T Rav signing out. See ya!